start the actual meeting, I would just like to hold a minute of silence in memory of former Town Councillor Pauline Gower, and I would like everyone to stand. Mr. Gower, do you want to say?
Just like to thank everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to all members of the public, councillors and officers who are joining us for today's meeting. Please be aware that the council is video recording this meeting and this will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. I would just like to highlight some key points of the meeting format. Please can I ask everyone to have their phones turned off or set to silent. If councillors have any concerns about hearing or seeing others in the meeting, please let the chair or a council officer know straight away. The fire exits are clearly marked, with 2 in this room being the closest. The assembly point is the flat grass area by the patio. Please remain seated unless you're invited to speak or need to take a comfort break. The toilet facilities are out in the corridor. Members of the public are invited to participate in the meeting with a key point as follows. Points. When the public participation agenda item is introduced, please raise your hand showing you wish to speak and we'll invite you to speak. If you're comfortable standing, please do so to ensure you can be heard across the room. Public participation is limited to a maximum of 4 minutes per person. You do not need to state your name when you start speaking. I would ask that participants looking to leave the meeting wait until the end of the agenda item to limit distractions for other participants. To all present, please remember to show respect to others in the meeting and avoid interrupting where possible to enable others to follow the meeting. If any councillor feels concerned about any aspect of the meeting or discussion, please clearly state point of order. I would then gesture for you to elaborate. If anyone present is found to be behaving unacceptably, they can be ejected from the meeting by resolution. Thank you for listening. On behalf of the council, I would like to thank everyone for attending this town council meeting. Thank you. Number 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. We have 2 apologies this evening. Councillors Maggie Wearmouth and Councillor Liz Borman both had personal commitments. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2 is disclosure of interest. To deal with any disclosure by members of any disclosure or pecuniary interest, and interests other than pecuniary interest as defined in the Seaford Town Council Code of Conduct and the Localism Act 2011 in relation to matters on the agenda. Councillor Wilraven.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've just got a non-pecuniary interest on agenda item 20 because I'm a regular passenger on the Common buses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilraven.
Any other declarations of interest? I would just, even though we've just discussed it, just say that I am a Lewis District Councillor. So when we get to the agenda on the Lewis District Council High Street Audit, it's just to say that I'm the District Councillor. I know there's others who are District Councillors here as well. Thank you.
Yeah, all those interests are noted and understood.
Just so we've covered everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 3, public participation. To deal with any questions or brief representations from members of the public in accordance with relevant legislation and town council policy. So for anyone in the public who would like to speak, yes. Anyone else who would like to speak in public participation? This is the point, if anyone wants to speak on an agenda item, this is the time to speak about it. Because we don't speak as we go through each
Do
agenda
you need
item.
to know what agenda item it is?
No, that's fine. Thank you. Would you like to speak about it?
So that's a good evening, Madam Mayor, good evening, officers and council, good evening, councillors. I'd like to speak on, well, I'm not actually sure what agenda item it is, I do apologise, but it's regarding the town hall. The town hall pop-in today was run by kind elderly volunteers. It was a popular community hub used regularly by elderly, possibly lonely residents who could go there for a hot drink, some cake, biscuits and a chat. I would like to request that the Town Council withdraw the tender opportunity for the Town Hall and to not enter into any contracts. Going forward, I would like to suggest that councillors propose that this asset to be excluded from future tendering processes and for it to remain a community hub with a self-repairing lease without prejudice. But I'd also like to add, would it also be possible for the Town Council to publish on its website the Community Assets Register, which was done back in between 18 and 19. It would help us understand community assets. Thank you.
Chair, shall I briefly respond to that? I think it's really important to understand that the decision about the Old Town Hall award is not a negative reflection upon the current or previous occupants. I think the process should be well understood that there are a number of assets in the town which the town council leases out, and those leases are for a fixed term. At the end of that lease period, then an open process for determining the next leaseholders is entered into. We usually call that a concession process. That was advertised on our website. Various bids were received from various community organisations to take this particular lease on. And then due process was followed in terms of determining which was the best bid that the council received. And it's in the interest, of Seaford residents and the public that the council make the strongest award possible each time that lease comes up. On this particular occasion, the previous leaseholders were not successful. There was another applicant, and once the decision has been finalised, we'll be able to say a bit more about that publicly. But as I say, it's simply the council having to follow due process in terms of its responsibility for its assets, its due process around leasing concessions. And as I say, as a result of that process, a particular award will now be made to cause a change of leasee, but with, again, a very clear brief from the council in terms of a strong community offer from the venue as part of that new arrangement. I'd also note your point about community assets register. I'll obviously raise that with the team to see, to make sure we're publishing all the information we should on these matters as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Lady in the black, would you like to stand? You'll be the next one.
I sit because I'm...
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, it's about the bonds. I and many other people would like to know, we hear a lot about the consultation that's taken place, the widespread consultation over the last 3 years, and we would just like to know how the council went about this consultation and how you came to the figures. I think you actually published figures who were for people's supporters and objectors. And we're just wondering how you actually came to that figure. Did people raise their hands or write in, or and I don't know whether they were the same as the objectors and supporters on the Lewis District Council people.
Okay.
And that was really... oh yes, and the other one, important one was, as you know, the Department for Transport has a consultation period running now. Did the council know about it when it started? And because we didn't see any notification at all, so we're wondering whether they actually knew, and if not, how we would be expected to know. That I think is a question that a lot of people are actually. Okay.
Thank you. Very happy to clarify matters in relation to Cliff Gardens. Just for the benefit of everyone here, and also cross councillors, full council considered the permission for the land that we own for this project in January 2022 and gave permission for the project holders to start their project then and gave permissions so they were able to do things such as apply for the stopping up order that are now applied to on the formal road. And full councillors will remember also revisited this item in January 2024, met with representatives from Seaford Community Partnership and discussed with them any matters they wish to raise in relation to this project. We'd also expect this project to continue to return to full council to make sure councils are fully updated, and also should any aspects of the project require any additional permissions that they can be considered by full councilling process. In terms of consultation, the Community Partnership carried out a public consultation on Cliff Gardens, so I imagine those are the results that you would be referring to, although Lewis District Council obviously would also be recording objectives and supporters in terms of their planning considerations. So I think that's what's going on in terms of the figures that may be relating to this project.
Did you not yourself put some figures out somewhere? I seem to remember 29 for 2022 against. I think they're the figures we're thinking of. I'm sure I saw somewhere, and I just wondered how they actually came to those.
Okay, I'm happy to go. I'll go back and check for you and reply to you.
Thank you. I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Happy to check that. In terms of, but as I say, in terms of the consultation, obviously we were very mindful that the community partnership should conduct a public consultation about the plans, and they agreed, and they were definitely doing that as part of the arrangement.
It's just how they got the figures.
Yeah,
in
terms of their actual figures. We'll see what we can find out about.
Thank you.
Councillor, do you want to help out with this?
Those figures were from Lewis District Council's planning application.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm happy to take your authority on that.
Yes, it's, on the consultation there's a link to the council meeting. It was all documented there for the planning meeting.
So that's where those figures have come from, but I know also Queen's Partnership could also do a public consultation on this matter as well. And in terms of the stopping order, I think it's a fair point that you made. Yeah, we be honest, we didn't know what was really happening.
And not even Seaford Community Partnership, because they were the ones
that
let us know there was going to be one. Yeah.
I don't know if they were made aware first, or whether it's just one of those, to be honest, bureaucratic processes that sort of pops up when it pops up.
Not many industries in London is there.
No, of course we don't. I've now spoken to colleague officers, and we will be doing our best to make people aware of this, although we're very conscious it's very close to the deadline. So we'll see what we can do on that.
Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Maybe Blue Scott? Would you like to?
Yes, I really wanted to talk about the Seaford Town Council now. Is it appropriate to bring it up now?
Yes, this is where this relates to.
You have a Seaford notice board. Do you think that the Seaford Town Act will improve that, or will it be instead of that? I represent the Chamber of Commerce, and we looked at this swapping act for the town, and we're rather sitting on the fence because we didn't not like it and we didn't completely like it, so we were sitting on the fence about it, and I just wondered if it had been carried further forward.
Thank you. Well, I really appreciate you coming this evening and raising those points with us in relation to the. I think obviously we'll cover this a bit later on in the item, but within the report, as you can see, I don't see anything in what's being proposed about this being some sort of monopoly or unique situation or preventing others doing other things. That's not our understanding of the interpretation behind it. It's sort of more of an independent venture than a kind of official with inverted commas one, if that makes sense. But obviously you'll see within the report how the people creating this app, following on from their app in Peacehaven, we understand it's going well. To see, what's the attitude of the town council towards the similar app in Seaford, and obviously councils will consider that this evening. So your comments are very helpful for that discussion.
Thank you. Any further questions in public participation? Thank you. That closes public participation. Right, then on to agenda item number 4, which is petitions.
No petitions, Chairman.
Then on agenda item number 5, which is the minutes. To note the following minutes approving or not approving recommendations as required. So we have number 5.1, which is full council, the 20th of January. As it mentions here, there was an amendment to the draft minutes circulated. This is the inclusion of additional sentence within the minute reference as follows. It was requested that the vote on recommendations be taken separately given speculation around the term and widespread support being used. Any further amendments? Councillor Mark Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to, I'm sorry, I haven't got the number of the policy, but in the January full council we had a policy called concessions policy, which we had a draft policy which we did adopt. Given some thought to it and rereading that over the last couple of months, I think one of the things that I personally felt was missing from the policy was an understanding of the procedures that underpinned it. So there was a really excellent policy written which provided a vision for how concessions could be tendered for and the kinds of things that the council were looking for, and it was very, very well articulated from the point of view of giving a much more holistic perspective in considering what tenders could actually mark up and offer, which included not only financial viability but other things like environmental sustainability and community and health and well-being, etc. So it was a really quite an interesting leap from a previous procurement strategies which were mainly focused on funding but not those other things. So it was very positive from that point of view. But I think we felt one of the things that were possibly missing was that we didn't then understand how this matrix and how the whole process of tendering would actually come about, and that was something that we felt perhaps, even though it's procedural and might not sit actually within the policy, would have benefited from being presented with the policy. So the amendment would be that we propose that, or I propose, that because that we need to either have further discussion on that policy in terms of having a procedural document which we might be able to approve as an addition to the policy in another full council meeting. So I'm kind of throwing that out there if anybody wants to mention anything or not.
I'd like to second that, please. You can take that forward, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of clarifications. So basically, you're happy with the concession policy, but you want someone to support it in addition. Is that what you're trying to say? So you're not really approving what happened in January. You're doing some extra, and the money didn't do effectively. That's what you're trying to do.
Yes, so approving the policy as it stood from the point of view, but I think there's a lack of procedural information, which I think the policy would benefit, this particular policy would benefit from if it was more transparent and obvious. So it could be there as an appendix to the policy.
Right, thank you.
There is a point of order, because I'm actually lost. I thought we were approving the minutes. You can't retrospectively change the minutes of the meeting. What we've been asked to do is approve the minutes. Obviously, I do have sympathy with Councillor Sally's point of view, but that has to be a new motion to come to future council. But you cannot change what was agreed in the past, which is what we are asked to do.
Yeah, I'm grateful to Councillor Adeniji for his intervention. This is a procedural matter to agree the minutes. We have to formally, legally agree the minutes of our meetings. Helpfully, this note here explains an amendment made to the minutes as they were being prepared, so there's an absolute clarity for councillors which minutes we are now agreeing, but it's not an opportunity to seek further motions on those motions. that, as I say, would have to go through due process for further matters to be considered.
So that will be considered at another meeting?
Yeah, for which councils wish to bring that forward through the appropriate channels, that can then be considered.
Okay, thank you. So, under that understanding, so we'll take the minutes with what we've got here.
Yeah.
So can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Walraven and a second by Councillor Adeniji. Then all in favour?
Thank you.
Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Then, and then on the 15th of February, we have full council draft minutes as well. No amendments. So can you have a proposer, please? Councillor Rutland and a seconder. Councillor Sturton, and then all in favour. Thank you. Community Services, 7th of March 2024. For the draft minutes, may we have a proposer, please?
No, I've got a comment.
Sorry.
With the community services, there was quite a discussion around the urban, as opposed to both, but on the urban grass cutting and the way it's been minuted, and I appreciate it's tricky and complex and nuanced, isn't accurate. And it isn't accurate to the degree that it actually says we're entering into a solely cut and drop programme, which isn't the case going forward, although that is what we are doing immediately. The chair of the committee, Councillor Wearmouth, did seek my review on it, but because there was only one day and I didn't get to it in those few hours, I didn't get there in time before it came out. But I have emailed her with it, and so I'm just thinking that it would probably be a good idea to make sure that that's accurate, especially as it's something which is very much in the public eye and is going to be going forward. I haven't got all the amendments in front of me. I have done them on an email, so I don't know how you want to deal with that.
So let me say, the normal practice is the minutes are circulated to chairs ahead of coming to full council, and only come to full council once the chairs have agreed them. So if you're saying that these minutes have not been agreed by the chair of the committee, then the appropriate step to take would be to agree them at the next full council meeting, or this one, and seek clarification from that chair. So that's what we'll do with those minutes, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Right, then on to finance and general purposes on the 12th of March. Can I have a proposer? Councillor Rooston and a seconder. Councillor Lord, and then all in favour. Thank you. Then on to golf and the view, 27th February. Can I have a proposer? Councillor Adeniji, a seconder, Councillor Rutland, and then all in favour. Thank you. And then planning and highways, if it's okay, we'll take all three together. So the 1st of February, the 22nd of February and the 14th of March. Can I propose Councillor Walraven and a seconder, Councillor Clay, and then all in favour. Thank you. Right, we're now on to the civic update report, which is the Mayor's update report. Consider report 184/23 presenting the Mayor's update and details of engagements attended. Do you have any queries? Questions? As you can see, I've actually put future event, which isn't a normal practice. But I found out last year that this is your last Mayor's report, so I decided I would put future events in, so that they still existed. But I deliberately haven't put the venue or the times because a lot of them to do with young people, so I decided I would just give the dates of those events coming up. And just a plug for the Blues Brother event that we've got going on the 13th of April, which is a fundraising event at the Recruit Youth Centre. Tickets are still available. Thank you. So, Councillor Hurren.
Yeah, just to say thank you to Councillor Honeyman for serving as Mayor for the past 2 years. Period of change, with lots of new councillors coming in, so thank you for guiding us into the council and all your hard work for the last 2 years.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just a tiny bit of the next one. Thank you very much. It's a long meeting tonight. It's a big agenda. Right, thank you. So I'm going to propose the reports, and then can I have a second, please? is Councillor Ura. And then all in favour? Thank you very much. And then on to the young mayor's report.
Recently, I held a cocktail mocktail event at the Macrea's Youth Centre with the help of Youth Forum. This night was very successful and I'm really pleased with how it went. Altogether, with the raffle, we made a total of £634.
Well done.
I'm so grateful for the generous help from Diala's Amy's Kitchen and Lovely Selection of Wine given for the raffle and the very kind support from Rotary and Town Council. All funds raised goes to my two chosen charities, Arm and Alliance Seaford Landcraft. I'm so pleased that I could have helped them in any way that I can. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Then we are now on to the Town Clerk's update report.
Thank you, Chair. I hope councillors have the chance to review the report. They'll see listed achievements, key reporting, and also some forward planning. So we'll be the packed agenda this evening, Chair, so I'm very happy to take any questions or comments from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on the Town Clerk's report? No? Oh, Councillor Bristow.
Yeah. Back in January, we were given a presentation.
Councillor Bristow, would you just mind holding just 1 second?
By the CCT's partnership about the start of this project. During that meeting, we raised a number of queries about the materials used and the flood risk and so on and so forth. Just to try and ensure that those things are addressed as we move forward. I'd appreciate if officers were able to give a bit of an update on where the project is regarding those items. And the second thing that I wanted to bring up was on the concessions policy. Having read the NALC website, it recommends that there's kind of a trial of new policies, which don't quite know how that happens in practice, when you've either got to do something or you haven't. But I'm really curious to understand a bit more about how that's gone. And in particular, I'd appreciate a description of procedure which was used in respect of how any conflicts of interest were dealt with during the process. Thank you.
Right, so Cliff Gardens, yes, that's all noted, and we anticipate we're having regular meetings with the community partnership for updates on the project, and then when it's clear this needs to come back to council, that's what will happen. That's the process we've been following since January 22. That's why they came back in Jan 24, and we'll carry on in that guise. Concessions policy, yeah, I'm very aware of the NALC advice, and obviously where we feel it's appropriate for. I think it was very, very clear in the report that councillors read alongside this policy that we were very clear about this being something of a new policy, and we did want to see how it went. And obviously, if it feels that further amendments of that policy are needed, they will be brought back to full council for approval. In terms of, and part of that also, as being asked about earlier this evening, in terms of what practice goes alongside that policy, and obviously we're making sure that we follow due practice, but also seeing what might be helpful to develop going forward in terms of sort of written procedural guidance alongside this policy to help to reaffirm it and make it work in the best way possible. In terms of the actual details of this question, there isn't. Sorry, come back if you wish.
No, it's all right. Carry on.
In terms of the more detailed question, I'm conscious this is a public forum, so I may not be able to go into all the details outside of a confidential setting. But please be assured that during this process involved myself, the RFO, and also two appropriate chairs who were part of the decision-making panel, being the chairs of Community Services and Planning and Highways. And all the decisions that were taken during the process involved all of those people, and where necessary steps were needed, they were taken following the expert advice that was present for the process.
Thank you. Councillor Bristol, you want to come back?
Yeah, I mean, I'm slightly perplexed that, having been involved in several tender processes in the past, we have a new policy, okay, it's something that's fairly new and it's always a novel thing when something like that's put into practice. But I would have thought that it would have been prudent to write a procedural document based on best practice to go with that, and for everybody who was evaluating the tenders to be familiarised with that. And you haven't quite asked whether there were any conflicts of interest that were asked for or declared in that process. And I'm not going to say too much more, but in my experience, if there is a conflict of interest, that evaluation is entirely removed from the process, not just a part of it. Perhaps you can come back to us in due course with what best practice has been followed and how that's run, because I'm very, very keen that proper process and transparency has been done, even though it's the first time a lot of these tenders, concessions contracts are for 3 years. It's not kind of like a 6 month and then change seats kind of thing. So I'm going to leave it there, but I really do want this addressed.
I think that, again, in a public forum, it would not be appropriate for me to go into more details than I have now. I hope councillors would respect that in such a setting as this. This is not the setting for a minute, line-by-line discussion of a commercial in confidence process. I'm not able to do that, much as I might wish.
I'm not talking about any commercial in confidence issues, I'm talking about council process, which is a public body. But I'm going to leave it.
Councillor Wright, did you want to?
I'm not quite sure what else Councillor Bristol wishes me to add in terms of the fact that as I feel that I'm trying my best to make clear. I think it's really important to note that obviously, in the history of the Town Council, we thought it was really important to strengthen and develop the concessions policy from where it was before and from all the decisions that might have been made over the last 20 years. So we're on a path of improving our practice and seeking to establish the best practice possible while being mindful of being a town council, a small organisation, and operating within the risks and financial policies and constraints of a town council rather than perhaps a larger body, for example. It's very clear that, of course, everyone in the process involved in whatever the concessions may be an example of that, we're on a journey together here as we are continuing to strengthen our policies and add policies and procedures as we go. And clearly we can see lessons to learn for the future in terms of how we may add policies to procedures to policies where this is appropriate. And of course we want to look at it really carefully and see what is the best practice going forward. In terms of these particular decisions, as I said, the relevant decision makers were all involved in this decision and all made the decision and signed the decision off. So I think we can be satisfied with the process having been followed, while at the same time looking to make sure that in the future we see if we need to further strengthen our processes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor, I need you to come.
Yeah, just as a follow-up to Councillor Bristol's point, I remember very well when the policy came up in January. I had a couple of questions, and I was told, "Oh no, this is a high-level policy. There will be a detailed detailed coming back." I wasn't aware that we're going to be using that literally straight away. So I do concur, and I do share some concerns as well. And I just wish that councillors were made aware that this at the time. So I do think I do have concerns as well. And I think maybe with that insight, or in future things can be improved in the communication.
Yes, no, you're right. It should have been. Well, I completely recognise is that if it wasn't clear to councillors the cycle of concessions that we're involved in, and therefore that that there would be a set of necessity a number of concessions to award in the spring, then we can look to see how we can make sure we're making that as clear as possible to people, so councillors understand the position fully. Absolutely.
Councillor
As I was on the panel, I can say that none of us knew who the applicants were, because they would be in envelopes and they were open on that day, and so nobody knew who the applicants were. So it was quite, if there was any conflicts, nobody would know. So,
okay, thank you. Councillor Douglas.
Thank you. I'd like to see the new tender documents, and they're quite detailed, and the specs of everything's in there. But I am slightly concerned that 2 councillors have raised an issue now about the process, and given that it's not clear, and you've said it's not clear, and there's possibly areas for improvement, I don't want to see a fait accompli with tenders awarded and signed off when there's an opportunity to just pause the process before contracts are signed, look at how the process was undertaken, and just make sure that we've covered all the bases, because if there is any doubt, we shouldn't really be signing off contracts. What are your thoughts on that, please?
Okay, again, I'm trying to make sure that I'm mindful of this not being an exempt item or exempt discussion in terms of what I'm able to say. And essentially what happened during the process was a risk was uncovered during the process. What happened next was that those involved in the decision-making process had to consider how to manage that risk. They considered how to manage that risk, taking relevant advice to do so, and having done that, they took the actions that were identified to manage that risk were then taken. And on the basis of that risk being identified and that risk being managed, the panel felt able to proceed to decision. So I think council should be satisfied that there was a degree of rigour applied to this situation, and that appropriate steps were taken in the light of the risk that was uncovered. In the light, and the panel were then satisfied in terms of being able to proceed to a conclusion. So I'm sorry if I've misled you at all in my answers this evening. I'm trying to say 2 things at once. 1, risk was identified, steps were taken to manage it, so a due decision could be taken and that decision can stand. At the same time, looking to see what has happened, of course we want to see if there are any lessons to learn for the future and any ways we could further strengthen our process and strengthen our risk management. But I don't think that takes away from the fact that a proper decision has been taken.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor?
Thank you. It's a troubling area, and you've referred to it now several times. This is an open meeting. Is it ever possible to move the discussion from being open to moving it into the exempt? Do you have an exempt session later?
Yes.
I'm actually wondering whether we wouldn't be wise to do that.
We can certainly always, if we wish to, pass a motion to exclude the public. I think in terms of this evening, what we're trying to do is to find, is to basically say what can be said now on this matter to enable it to be addressed as we are together. If councillors had wanted to, for example, bring forward proposals about these matters, they would have to do that through due process. So we couldn't sort of just go into exempt session and start passing the motions and stuff, because nothing's been brought before council with due notice for us to be able to do that. So I hope that helps us sort of clarify how we're trying to navigate this situation.
Yeah. Councillor Bristow, and I'm mindful of time.
I was just going to make the example that I can't remember whether it was perhaps two or three full councils ago. We had an item which was a white paper, which was then taken through to the exempt session. That was decided on the night. whether that's something to consider, because sometimes it's better to deal with things head on fully and straight away.
We always seek to do that, Councillor Bristow, but we have to operate under the standing orders of the council and the legislative rules for a town council. So we would always have to have motions for the meeting to consider, have to go through that process and not just spontaneously put them through. That's due process.
Thank you. Right, if there's no further questions on... I was going to raise an issue on 2.6 about committees. It says the management team have worked well to take ownership of relevant committees. So we just wanted to clarify exactly what was meant by ownership.
Yeah, so I think in terms of the senior management team, we have a really strong arrangements now. Obviously, we've had quite a lot of turnover in terms of we have a new RFO, we've had our new HAPs come in during recent months as well, and we now have a really strong process of perhaps working alongside the Chair of Community Services, the RFO working alongside the Chair of FMGP, obviously historically the Planning Officer working alongside the Chair of Planning and Highways, so that those committees can work in the best way possible. So that's what I meant by really is how, with those management changes, we now have a really strong system of those officers working with the relevant chairs on committee matters.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any further questions? Right, we are asked to note the contents of the report. So please can I have a proposer? Councillor Ruth Sturton and seconder, Councillor Rutland, and then all in favour.
Councillor Lord Chair, thank you.
Right, then on to agenda item number 8, Town Council Working Group reports. Do we have any Town Council Working Group reports? Councillor Chan?
Just to bring everyone up to date with the working group on the Seaford farm. Since the last verbal report before Council in January, members of the working group had meetings with key stakeholders to obtain their additional views, thoughts and ideas. This included meetings with South Downs National Park, Natural England, Sussex Wildlife Trust and Seaford Head Local Nature Reserve Management Committee. Feedback has been very positive and supportive, and with a spirit of cooperation and collaboration. Various ideas were received and discussed, including use as an educational space for Seaford Farm, an exemplar of eco-friendly use and sustainable employment, amongst others. All this ongoing background work by the working group is helping to inform aspects of the briefing document currently under preparation. The next meeting of the working group has been divided into 2 parts. Part 1 in April will be held at the barn. This will allow first-hand viewing and help to inform comparisons with other similar sites such as Charleston and Firle and the South Downs National Park Visitor Centre. Part 2 of the meeting in early May will be conducted to map out a vision for the usage and purpose of the barn. A fuller draft of the briefing document will be presented for further discussion at the working group meeting in June, to be finalised in September, to bring to full council later. A further update can be made at the next full council meeting of the Seaford Barn working group.
Thank you. Councillor Bristow?
Last full council we asked about the progress of the Seaford Football Club Crouch working group because there have been delays in meeting. We were due to have a meeting yesterday, but it was cancelled currently, as I understand from my email inbox, without explanation. And I'm just wondering when we're going to meet, because the football season is going to be over before we've even met at this rate, and we need to get this sorted. And I know the chair's not yet, so sorry.
The chair's not here this evening, so I'm sure she will be able to.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Outdoor body representative reports. Councillor Homan?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor again. talking about the Seaford to Brighton Railway Partnership group. Actually, Freddie is, Councillor Hillsay's on there, and there's District Council there. So he was at the same meeting. We had the AGM recently in February. Key points for Seaford is Bridgerton Station and the what's happened, that particular spare rooms and conversions. And Barbara, what's her surname, Linda? Mine, that's Barbara's. She's actually gone to, is it South Wales, Swansea, I think. She picked up a couple of awards for the group. So there's some national awards to do with the Community Railway Partnership nationally, and she has picked up a couple of awards. Can't remember the specific ones, but they're out there on the...
Volunteer of the Year for the UK.
There you go, Volunteer of the Year for the UK. She's done really well, so that's very good. There's work on the redundant
There was a second award.
Oh,
the second award is for the second place is for the improvement to the station.
Okay. So two aspects actually. She has done really well, and she does sometimes turn up at these meetings here, but she does contributions. But I thought we should put that in the minutes for her recognition. Work on that particular station, and the redundant platform, there's going to be forward fencing at some stage, which is, in a lot of ways, it's a shame, but that's still being negotiated and costings for that. But it will probably. You can say it's not going to look so aesthetic for the looking, if you are, on the platform, but I think it's partly to enable the volunteers and obviously workers as well to actually go on the platform a bit more safely. I think that's the main reason for it. Not because they really want to do it, but because of the health safety aspects. So that's a key bit for that. The other highlight, which I will talk about, but only very briefly, around the University, the Falmouth Station, University of Brighton, Sussex, signage around there and signage to go to Stamford Park. It's all relevant to the line, and but that's quite a big aspect for using the line, because people do get confused if you're not familiar with the area how you get to Stamford Park from Falmouth Station. So all that's good. So that's another highlight. Apart from that, there's obviously things going on, but I'd say they're the two main highlights really relevant for here tonight.
Thank you.
Obviously much more was Edit's Fair meeting, so there we are.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Mead.
Thank you. The Citizens Advice Bureau, we haven't actually had any meetings recently, but it's come to my notice that they are very severely lacking in money, and seeing as we are in such a crisis, so many people are struggling and wanting advice. Just to make councillors aware that whatever we can do with the town council to support the CAB locally would be great. I mean, we do support them anyway, but any fundraising that was going to go that direction, I think would be great. They are actually presenting to the Chamber of Commerce next Thursday morning at their breakfast meeting here. So hopefully that will generate some revenue for them. But just to make you aware, there are a lot of people struggling, even in Seaford. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moffat.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Meek. I'm also sitting on the Citizens Advice Bureau, and Sarah Archer is very, very grateful already that the council has already agreed to award an increase this year. So we are grateful. I know she's grateful for that. It's not a massive increase. It was a little bit of an increase in their stipend kind of thing. But I agree totally with Councillor Meek that we have such a population in Seaford that actually is seeking their advice, and it's actually really difficult for them to find accommodation, which they then have to pay for, etc., in Seaford to provide this. And they've given us some quite straightforward costs, and the costs that they are receiving don't meet their outgoings at the moment at all if they wanted to increase support for Seaford residents who really and honestly need it. So I know there are other ways to get that form of advice, but the way that the Citizen Advice approach that advice has been really helpful and positive to local residents. So I do hope we can think outside the box a bit more about also how we can support them. And obviously we're very much looking forward to the videos and the presentation on Thursday.
Thank you very much. Can I also suggest that another way to let everyone know about your outdoor 4G reps is emails around. You can all regularly email each other just to let people know what's going on with the outdoor bodies as well. Thank you. Right, agenda item number 10, District and County Councillor update reports. Who would like to do the district one? I have got something on Zane's Law that we passed through. I've got the notes. At the last District Council full council meeting we had on the 12th of February, we had a chap, and I apologise if I pronounced it, from David Afrash. This is to do with Dane's start again, just let everyone know that. Dane's Law motion, which is to do with contaminated land within the UK. This was a motion put forward by Councillor Imogen Makepeace. This is to do with landfill sites which happened, which was next to Zane's house. Zane was actually a 7-year-old boy. 7-year-old boy, yes. Unfortunately, he sadly died. And this is to do with the fact that Zane's house carried near it hydrogen cyanide poisoning when the area was flooded, and Zane died and his father is now paralysed due to the effects of the HCN. And then so the motion was put through Lewes District Council, and as a motion that contaminated land should be actually listed where it is. So if there is any flooding, people are aware of situations. Do you want to add anything more to there? Because I realise my notes is a bit sketchy and that's not come across as well as it should have done. Does anyone else want to add anything about District Council? Council President?
Yeah, just briefly on Seaford West. So the Valley Play Park, we're still waiting for the play equipment to be refreshed, but we understand that's going ahead come early summer, which is great news. There have been several trees put in early this year, which is fantastic. However, there was a bit of an error and a proposal for more trees to go in, which hadn't had consultation. So that's been paused, and we understand that there will be a community consultation about putting in fruit and orchard trees, and that may expand in terms of sort of looking at Seaford West and widely in appropriate places. So for any residents living over that way, look out for that, and hopefully there'll be an opportunity to get involved and optimise that.
Thank you. County.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few things. I'm sure you probably know, I'm sure you already know, obviously the council tax went up by 2.99%, 2% for adult social care, it's 4.99%. This was the council promoting fostering and trying to encourage foster parents. So if you know anyone who is interested, but I think we are actively encouraging people to take up fostering, because it does make a very big difference to people's lives as a foster parent. So I'm urging anyone here today who can do that, please do it. Just go to the County Council's website and register. Now you cannot log photos on the app Fix My Street, and you can actually monitor it as well. So just go to Fix My Street, East Sussex County Council, and you can actually see all the photos that have been logged and all the statuses. So you don't have to go through logging it through iOS as well. The public car park charges will rise on the 2nd of April. That will be the second rise in 14 years. It doesn't affect Seaford that much because they're just car parks they're on-street car parks. So it's where people have parking bays that are controlled by the county council. But again, the parking charges will rise from the 2nd of April. And finally, the county council are doing 5 business to go by bus this Easter. And for Seaford, we've got the Flex bus, which is £1. So again, there is no reason not to use the bus. So it's there. That's it.
Thank you. Right, agenda item number 11, which is the request for the Town Council support for Seaford app. To note the creation of and consider supporting the Seaford app.
Thank you, Chair. I'm grateful to the Assistant Town Clerk for her work on this matter, and Council will see that they're basically being updated on the potential app coming forward and asked to consider whether the Seaford Town Council will be supporting. Supporting does not mean financial support, it means sort of almost spiritual support, if you like, rather than actually not giving any money to it. But it would mean we might be sharing information about it, and also, again, as it's explained in the report, they share appropriate information through it as well, where that's appropriate to do that. And also, as the report says, Swampy are also coming along to the town forum to say more about this app on the 30th of April. So again, happy to take questions and comments from you.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. We do have some concerns about this. I speak for myself, but also for fellow councillors, because I've had some input from fellow councillors, and I'm pleased to hear that there's someone here from the Chamber of Commerce, because one of our concerns was about the importance of consultation with other organisations in the town, such as the Chamber of Commerce. So I'll go very quickly through 3 or 4 key concerns. First is that we feel that, and we are not going to recommend, I'll say at the beginning, that I'm not going to recommend that we proceed with this app. And I'm now going to go into why. So firstly, that we feel as though we would be in a guinea pig situation, that it's not really being tried out. There's reference to New Haven and Peacehaven, but there hasn't been an opportunity to seek out what happened there. We don't, about 10 years ago, I understand, I wasn't here then, but Seaford received £10,000 from a Mary Portas donation to help the High Street. Part of that was spent on an app called the Love Seaford app. Do you remember that?
I know, I was involved.
Yeah, I was involved.
Oh,
Yeah,
great.
both were, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Sounds good, but it didn't work. So that's the problem. That's our second concern.
Yeah.
Third concern is that there are now many efficient, effective sources of up-to-date information on the internet that an app can't really compete with in the same way. And we would suggest that they are also more reliable. The final point that I want to make is that Mr. Swappy or the Swappy app doesn't seem to deal at all with the issue of updating. So updating is absolutely key to an app, and have to put, yes, exactly. Yeah, you have to put money and resource into it. It's not free. It could end up being very costly. For those reasons, a number of us agree that you will support this, but there are other people who are not, who I haven't consulted with, who are here tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Matthews was next. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hura was next. Sorry. Then Councillor Matthews, then Councillor Matthews.
Yeah, I'm actually generally inclined to support it just because it's a sort of, doesn't really require a huge amount of resources of the council. My concern was, I think their funding model seems to be based on advertisements, which would mean that the adverts that appear on the app could potentially be in the space of a Seaford Town logo. So if we did end up endorsing the app tonight, could we withdraw it if we don't like it when we see it? Like, how quickly could we turn that around? Because I don't want to thus vote for something in a meeting that 6 months down the line an app's launched and there's dodgy adverts next to the Seaford Town's endorsement. So if we do go ahead, how quickly can we withdraw it is my question, basically.
Okay. Councillor Matthews.
Yeah, I think I share the views of Councillor Taylor and Councillor Brewer in some of the parts, but I think the Swampy app is, it's well intended, but I suppose some notes I've made around it is probably possibly feedback for the Swampy app, but there are no figures given in regards to the success of the Peacehaven app, so I've got no kind of evidence to base it on. And I guess I've kind of been looking at it from the opposite angle of like businesses or organisations that are not included on the app who are can't afford to be included on the app, which might give a false impression or misrepresentation of what is available in Seaford. And the name of it as well, the Seaford app, is, I don't know if that's set in stone, but again, it could be misleading or misconstrued around what actually is the Seaford app, because it is commercial, based on commercial businesses running it. And also, within Seaford, we all get a free magazine within Seaford, and I think which is generally well received, comes to our door. If they did that, I think I'd probably more be quite interested in that, because it's already got a readership base to promote itself on. And as Councillor Taylor said, Google can bring up anything in Seaford as it is, so what difference does it make? And I think furthermore, I'm just worried about how digitally inclusive it is, because I think it's got the potential to be digitally exclusive in terms, especially those organisations that cannot afford to, that offer a fabulous service within Seaford but actually can't afford to pay the advertising fee for it. And also there's no mention of artificial intelligence or AI in Swappy, because AI can have its advantages and disadvantages, but also it can, for example, if you go onto a website, you can press a button, you can hear what you can have an article read out to you through artificial intelligence. But for example, it could use that in quite a positive way, which could make it more digitally inclusive to people within the town. So I just think it's kind of a missed opportunity, and back in the day I worked on a website that was promoting businesses in Kent, but then Google came along and disrupted it and went out of business. So that was kind of a 2000s version of what this app is. Doesn't mean it's not well intended. You can promote businesses positively, but I think it's just a bit worried about it not being able to keep up to date with the technology as it is, particularly for example artificial intelligence. That's going to, next year or two, that's just going to, it's going to change our world, and there's no mention of that sort of thing.
Thank you. Councillor Antonini was next.
Can I come back to you?
Yeah, Councillor Bristol.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I really like to encourage entrepreneurship and thinking outside the box and doing new things normally. But with the Swappy app, I have contacted some friends of mine at Seaford, and they're very tech savvy people, and they hadn't actually heard of it. They downloaded it and found that there were already businesses on there that closed down and were out of date. That's not to say it's all bad, I'm sure it does some great things, but I think with any tech development project, as for us as a council, I'd be looking at how does our brand match the brand of Swappy. Calling it a Seaford app is a little bit unclear about who the target market is apart from a geographical location, and if it's mixing business with public body, I feel quite uncomfortable about that in the first, and I would suggest that perhaps in their development programme they might look at engaging with the business community first, seeing how they get on, and then if it's felt that it's appropriate then to engage with other organisations at a later stage. I also had a look at how long the company's been running. It's only a couple of months. We would very much be guinea pigs, which sometimes has advantages and sometimes doesn't. But I think, especially Seaford as a town council, although we wouldn't be putting money in at this stage, how much officer time would it take? And actually, I think we need to improve our own website before we start putting time into digitally improving somebody else's app. So I think it's a nice idea. Perhaps it could come back later, kind of thing, once it's a bit more honed. But I have concerns at this stage, but I wish them all the best with what they want to go and do. And again, with the updating and things, I'd also have a look at how many people are behind this and what the kind of support mechanism is. So that's my take.
Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I won't be on my own there, but I've been using the Peace Living app actually for the past 12 months. And I don't recognise many of the things that have been said there, because I think the app is, of course it's not perfect, but where it's a tourist town, and one thing people do now, the first thing I do before I go anyways, I go and find the app. Yes, you can use Google, but Google, an app has got everything in one place. And what this app does is got everything in one place. You can find the restaurants, you can find what's happening. You can find, I've been on a cliff walk in B-Stadium from the app, because you just click on there and it will actually give you directions to actually get to where you're going. So it will actually, so it's a way forward. And I don't think we should be frightened to embrace technology. Of course, it's not going to be perfect, but we can be there to actually influence it. If we want to use AI, it's not got AI, but that's a good thing, and that can come in the future. So, yes, 10 years ago, I worked with Sylvia on the old app, but that was 10 years ago. Technology has changed. At that time, we were trying to develop it ourselves. We didn't have the skills to do it. Here we've got somebody else who've got the skills to do it. What we can do is actually influence them. Yes, it's not very perfect, but I would like my colleagues to take this chance, because it's a chance to put Seaford on the map. Where it's always a town, and people don't know about Seaford. This is one way to advertise our town.
Thank you. I have Councillor Lord next.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillors. Well, first of all, we're going to put Seaford on the map because we park in our seafront. Which is scrubbed from the survey map. On a serious note, I understand what people are saying, but when it goes on to Google, there's no responsibility. No, there's any responsibility whatsoever. So I can put something on Google about somebody, you can contact Google 1,000,000 times, they will never remove it. If it's a Seaford app, it's the responsibility of Seaford and Seaford Town Council. So we're able to put things on or off, or control what goes on and what comes up. Because we talk about Google, I think someone said people come inclusivity. Well, everything goes on to Google. And Google says, well, Seaford's a town on the south coast. But if it's done by the Seaford Town Council, we'll say, yes, it is, but it has this, it's got that. And if something goes wrong on Google, it's just tough luck, because it's out there. If something goes wrong on our app, it's down to Seaford Town Council to monitor that and remove the item from the app, because we have some responsibility to control the app by just giving it to somebody else. So I think basically it's a good idea providing some kind of control over it. So what goes on, what goes off. Because you go to Google, there's restaurants like going back 10, 15 years in Seaford, which is still on there. They've never been taken off. But if we have some control over it and say, well, actually this restaurant does not exist. So it's just having that accountability. And if we can have some ownership of it, we'll be able to monitor it far more closely than straightforward Google. Thank you.
Thank you. Next I have Councillor Jabbar.
Thank you. As a resident said to me, if this was going to Peter Jones, he would say it was too early to be coming to the dentist, or this needs to get traction and be complete. It's incomplete, it's inaccurate in Peacehaven. Everything that's on that app is on any other search engine. It's not, there's nothing unique on there, and you can't pay to use it.
Can we as a council afford to be associated with an app on its own? Surely we should be independent and allow any other app provider to come forward. The information that we can give them is freely available on our website. They don't need our permission to link to it. Why are we spending officer time on this? It's not on our objectives, and it needs to perhaps come back in 6 months or a year when it's been evaluated. It's too early to adopt now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Meek.
Just briefly, just to answer Councillor Councillor Lord, I really don't think we would have any control over it at all. This is a private company, independently, they're funding it themselves through advertising. I think that all they want is our endorsement, and they will use our symbols and our references and everything like that, and our crest, and then they'll think, right, we've done that, we've got them on board. It's benefiting them, I think, far more than it's going to benefit us. That's my view.
Councillor Rooster.
Just to agree with Councillor Meek, all the words out my mouth.
I was also going to make a very similar point to Councillor Meek. Just about, I'm not entirely sure from the report either what support we would be offering, which is probably the vaguest part of what the ask is here.
Okay, Councillor Lindsay Sterling.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to make very similar points to Councillor Hall, Councillor DeBass and Councillor Meek. But it's just worth remembering the decision we're being asked to take here. This app will go ahead with or without us. We are not investing in it. They are asking for our cooperation. It sounds like not a lot, but I would caution against giving that. They are free to put on their app freely available information such that they want. But as a kind of a walled garden of the internet, a walled garden app, I think we should be very cautious about giving any kind of endorsement. We wish them well, and I would leave it at that.
Thank you. Councillor Rich Hyman.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, again. Yes, I've heard the arguments for and against. So I think in a lot of ways, if they're going to get any council endorsement, I think the district council would be a better fit. So all district councils in the same room, maybe they want to bring it to the very relevant officers at district council, because they're going to go on the tourist side a bit more wider than us and all what songs and so on. What is a definitive what song on that side of it? That doesn't really exist in this day and age. And even for internet ages, it never really did. How did you know what certain events were in certain towns? None of us really know, do we? We only really hear about it for various advertising and various promotions, various places. But I'm sure that the app will basically just software will just trawl all the internet anyway, so that's basically how it works. So it's not something sitting there really, I'm sure they do sort of various all types of media, social and otherwise, and traditional, but a bit straightforward. Again, even the town council doesn't really have a definitive what's on this never has. I think you maybe do a bit better than Seaford on that side of things. They always have, I think, that's been going for about 20 years. They're also been a bit more set up better. So I think if they want to get involved in any council, I would recommend that this district, look at this district. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Martha.
Yeah, I just want to endorse what colleagues have been saying. I just want to raise 2 points. I hope I remember that. The first one is about officer time actually putting into the app, because if we are contributing, how much is that costing us in time? We already have our own Seaford Town Council website. We could do so much more with that, and we aren't, because apparently we are very busy, we've got other things to do. So I am concerned that we're now creating more time. We've also invited this person, or there's a recommendation to invite them to one town council event, and I'm just concerned that if the vote goes a different way, that we're still going to do that.
Thank you. Right. Would you like to?
Okay, lots of points there. I think the assistant town clerk and myself were genuinely interested to see what the councillor reaction to this would be, because I think councillors have covered a number of very important points very clearly in the discussion. we wanted councillors to have the opportunity now to consider whether they wanted to have a similar relationship to this Act, to the one held by P7 Town Council, who came in at the beginning of the P7 Act, and were very much sort of almost partners of that process, if you like, or whether they rather would not wish to be involved in this way at this stage. That's why this report has come to council. I think I can sense the majority view of the room from the contributions that we received, Chair. So I think perhaps the motion that we would pass motion 1, and I think maybe motion 2 could be amended to confirm not supporting Swappy, which is confirm not supporting Swappy at this stage, and then as the report makes clear, motions 3 and 4 follow motion 2, so they fall by passing that amendment to motion 2. If councillors are happy with that approach.
Can I just very quickly say that could we wish them well and keep the door open? Because I think it's very brave to come and do this and to talk to us about this like this, and I think that's something which...
I think we understand the respectful and constructive conflict uses from councillors, and I'm sure we'll be recommending them to pick up the points that the councillors have expressed this evening. But I think the word of council is very clear. So if we have the amended motion 2 and motion 1,
so if
you might want to take them together.
Okay, so we're asked to note that a Seaford app has been created, so it will be free online information for the community. 2 is to consider not supporting Swappy in the creation of the Seaford app by sharing links and general information about the Town Council and community. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Meek and a second from Councillor DeBus. All in favour? Against? Abstentions?
Okay, that was 2 abstentions. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to make everyone aware it's now 8:15 and we still have a lot to go through with the agenda. It's not saying what everyone speed up, but just be conscious that we still have quite a big agenda to go through.
I was just doing it.
Sorry. Right, agenda item number 12, to provide a briefing on the review to be carried out in Town Council's committee structure.
I want to thank officers for their work on this report. And you can, as the report makes clear, there's been some external changes going on, such as the changes with the view, and also in the light of experience as well. We want to take an opportunity to see how we can strengthen our committee structure over the year ahead. It's important we have committees that help us consider things, determine things, and get things done. I think as the report makes clear, this is quite an undertaking, so we don't want councillors to feel they're being rushed in this matter. And instead we see 24-25 as a transitional year towards a final arrangement in 25-26 that we would see working well. So the councillors are not, so that's why we're asking councillors to note the report at this stage, although of course Chair, I'm very happy to take any comments from the floor at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Lindsay.
Thank you very much. I gather from this that officers see things as transitioning and see that 24-25 will be the transitional year moving into a new arrangements in 25-26 onwards. But I do wonder whether some events are already ahead of us in the sense that, in terms of golf in the view, the work of tendering the view has been completed. I wonder if therefore there might not be a case for advancing, speeding up the process, recognising of course that the committee structure would be agreed at the council AGM which is coming up. But even though I do ask why, could we not consider ahead of that whether golf could be, since it's golf, could be part of the work of community services already. But also, climate change, colleagues, is Madam Mayor, is an important issue. And I don't mean that in terms of the politics of it that seems to bog everyone down, but in the hard reality of the fact that we are a coastal town. We currently have climate change as a subcommittee. And with officer time and resources and everything, could we consider giving climate change full status as a committee in its own right? And could we do that without any additional commitment of resources, given you could also see golf and the views role either being diminished or even, depending on how much diminished, folded in community services. I would like to see some discussion on that part.
From a slightly different tack, I was going to actually invite the town clerk to expand on 1.8a, just what the engagement with councillors will look like, and whether actually having a really packed full council agenda tonight is the time for us to discuss the different options in the committees, or whether we should be doing that after this meeting so that we can actually progress tonight and know the contents of the structure review.
Okay, shall I do that one? Shall I speak now, Chair? I think, yeah, forward. I think if 1.8a should say forward engagement with and feedback from councillors. As the report makes clear, each committee will be asked to consider changes relevant to it. So that's effectively a large part of the councillor consultation. But we're very open to to make sure this feels as comprehensive a process as possible. So we would also, consider other steps, maybe with like questionnaires to councillors and stuff like that, to make sure we get feedback from you before proposals come to your committees for final consideration. I think in terms of, I think that I completely hear what Councillor Sturton says, and that was actually, being completely honest with you, about 3 months ago, probably our starting point really. What can we get done by May, and then we'll take it from there sort of stuff. But when we actually, as the report makes clear, when we started to look at this, we thought, no, actually we want to make sure councillors fully consider this. Because even with respect, even moving golf into community services, we'd have to then consider, one of the things that this process will be considering is community services is a very busy committee at the moment. And so it might, that putting more things into that committee at the moment may not feel like an immediate step we can really be taking because of the amount of work that committee is doing at the moment. So it's really like we want to have this more considered view really going forward, and that's the process we're really training this.
Thank you. Councillor Meek.
Thank you, Chair. I really welcome this initiative from officers. I think it's a really good idea to look at this. I absolutely agree with Councillor Horrow that we don't need to discuss anything further here, really. I think all we've got to do is agree that this is a good idea to look at in the future. And I think what Councillor Sturton says is very apposite. I agree, not community services, but for instance, why couldn't we have something like a committee which is Seaford, Head and the Golf? Because that's all part of the same thing, and with the South Hill Barn project, it could all come under the same committee, which is going to be a huge project anyway. So I think we should just accept this as a good idea, note it, and move forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. One suggestion that had been mooted was whether we did like an away day or something. So certain subjects that needed longer discussion are done away from full council, just so you can just focus on just single or maybe a few items. That's something to be discussed.
Yeah, we'll consider that's part of the forward engagement, and certainly I think that when we come to do the May annual meeting and we're looking at the year ahead, we'll certainly think about whether any away days will be a helpful step to take, while being mindful that that's more councillor time, more officer time, etc., etc. So that's something we want to think about.
Councillor Stern?
I think away days are great. Love an away day. I'm married to him, and we have 2 children. Yeah. So if there's any dates, can we have them sooner rather than later?
Thank you very much. Right, so we are asked to note the contents of the report. Can I have a proposal, please, Councillor? And then a seconder, Councillor Meek, and then all in favour. Thank you.
Chair, thank you.
Right, then we are on to agenda item number 13, which is to present and propose 2024 to 2025 meeting timetable for adoption by full council.
As been alluded to, this clearly relates to the previous item and needs to an extent. So as I said, having determined the wilderness transition, this is our starting point timetable. Taking council certain point, you need prior notice for your lives. So that's why this is coming to this meeting. It's very important that we do that and understand that. Happy to take any questions or comments from the councillors. Thank you.
Oh, Councillor Walker.
Thank you. I did notice on the Cannon Highways, there was a 4-week gap between the 19th of September and the 17th of October. As you know, normally every 3 weeks to...
Yes. I think that's caused by the number of committees that are happening in that period. Looking at the diagram, because we've got committees every week during that period.
And the only other, I think it's just a typo, the grant working group, I think that's a Tuesday, the 11th.
Yes.
Okay.
Do we want to leave that Canning Highways? Are you happy to leave it?
Yeah, that's an error with my date maths.
Oh, good. Okay. Last one, that's the more.
Obviously, the impact is if we move that one, it changes all
Yeah.
the other dates, and then we have to look at all the other committees around. So, what I might request is that maybe we look towards the time how business is looking, and if that date isn't going to work, we work with the chair to address that.
Yeah, we'll bend the meetings a bit as we need to make the council work. That's a sensible suggestion. Thank you. Thank you, Georgia.
Thank you, Councillor Bristow.
Please, may I just ask for clarification with the climate change subcommittee? This year that we've had, we sort of had 4 placeholders, if you like, and we ran 3 meetings because when we investigated, we found that there was only a commitment to 3 meetings. This proposal here on page 27, are we going for the full quarterly schedule, 4 meetings a year, or do you plan to stay the same as it is? Given the choice, I'd probably go for 4 meetings a year.
Yeah, I think that. I'm just checking he doesn't mention it in the report. He doesn't. No, that's fine. I think that. Yeah, I think that it's. I think where the 4 is what is proposed for the year. Always being mindful that, again, as we really with all of these numbers of meetings, if the chair stroke the committee or subcommittee themselves, have different views about that, we would listen to that. So, for example, I'm just saying, for example, but there may be other committees that wish to decrease or increase their frequency during the year, and we would listen to that. So this is very much a living document, but you need to have the dates now so you can make the necessary plans. But it is subject to amendment as long as people agree.
Thank you. Councillor Matthews.
Don't mean to give George any more headaches, but recently we had to find time to create an extra meeting, didn't we, to discuss an exempt item. I was just wondering whether whether it's worth considering building capacity into the timetable for any extra meetings we might need during the course of the year. So therefore, we put it in our calendars just in case it's needed. If it's not needed, it's great, But if it is needed, at least it's on our calendars. We know, to keep it free.
I think that's a very fair point. I think, again, this is where items 12 and 13 slightly overlap, Councillor Matthews, really, in terms of the agenda, because that's one of the things we've said under item 12. We're looking at the frequency and timings of the meetings as part of the committee review. So I think what would be helpful for me to say as proper officer, I'll certainly say this in my annual meeting, is we put as many meetings as possible on this timetable on a Thursday, and that's deliberate. That's for your sakes, because you have lives, so Thursdays may well be a council time. And where we arrange additional meetings and activities, we will always try and do them on Thursdays where that's possible. And if you guys know Thursdays is kind of council night, that will enable that to work, if that makes sense. But we may look to see during the transitional period, the review period, we may see through the review, see has some further tweaks to make to help that Thursday process working better. And I complete it.
Thank you. Councillor Stone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I mean, can I just note what a wonderful job you do of keeping us all to time and progressing the agenda forward in good time and
Finish the meeting.
making sure that the meetings finish within the statutory 3 hours. And can I also say what big shoes your successor has to fill in doing a similarly good job of managing such a difficult agenda. And with that in mind, and in a spirit of trying to make your successor's life as easy as possible, is there perhaps a case for having relatively more full council meetings with relatively less on each item's agenda? I can see obviously that no one really wants to come to a council meeting in August or December, but that does leave October, February and April where there's currently proposed no flows, and I wonder what colleagues and officers think on the idea of extending the number of full council meetings in the hope that we can perhaps transact our business quicker. And I'm sure I'm probably the only one here, but I do confess that after 3 hours of vibrant, vigorous debate, consideration of meaty issues and all the rest, my poor head, by 10 o'clock starts to hurt. If not for your sake, then for mine, maybe see if there's anything we can do about that.
Okay, again, I think that's part of the item 12 review, is to look at that. I think that I think we're open-minded about it. We have to bear in mind, though, every time we arrange a meeting, that creates work. So it creates more. The more meetings we have, the more work we have created, no matter how long or short they are, if that makes sense. And also, my only other worry would be obviously that people expand the time. You know what I mean? So we put more meetings in, we may find people spend more time discussing if we're not careful. But I think that the main point is just, it does. There's a whole process behind every one of these meetings we create. So I think if we, for example, that's why we want to have the review under item 12. If we did, for example, want to increase the number of full councils, we're probably looking to see what we could reduce to offset that, as this is a lot of work to create this number of meetings.
Thank you. Councillor DeBus.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the community services one, where there's a gap of 4 months before the next meeting. It usually means the same thing, that there's so much to discuss, and there is an opportunity to add one in on the 11th of July. I don't know if Maggie's brought that up with you, but could I propose an extra community services 11th of July, please?
So you want to have 5 community services meetings in the year?
And then have it as maybe an asterisk, and if there's nothing on the agenda, then fair enough.
The meeting would definitely happen if it was scheduled, I would imagine, as it's community services. I think I would refer back to my previous point, which is every time we create a meeting, we create additional work. And so we really feel, frankly, as an officer team, this number of meetings is your maximum number from the resources that you have. And if you want additional meetings, you'll have to identify what other meetings would go, so that otherwise the workload will become unmanageable.
Hang on. Sorry, I didn't know who Sue was first. Sorry, so Councillor Denigi?
No.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just conscious, of course, that Councillor Newmark isn't here, but climate change is moving from being taken, as I understand it, being taken as part of community services into being, I'm sorry, we don't know. Oh, we don't know. Okay, so that's one thing that is to be discussed, but that would link over with what you were talking about, Councillor DeBus. I appreciate the need not to just have more meetings. I would also think we need to probably shrink the agendas.
Councillor Mead.
Just to say, Town Clerk, I just wondered, You say it's going to create more work the more meetings you have, but surely the work is involved in making the agendas and the reports. So presumably it just means it's spread out a little bit, the same amount of work, but it just means that, as Councillor said, we just don't have it all at one time. I understand, but this is all set up on a format, basically. So if you just divide, you've got 8 reports, you just have 4 in one and 4 in another meeting. I understand it would probably be a bit more work, but it wouldn't probably be that much more work, and officers would have more time to prepare it. It would be like you could fit it in between other work, as opposed to having to think, God, we've got an enormous full council meeting or enormous community services meeting. We have to, all these, I don't know, officers would know better than me. I'm just suggesting, is it that much more work to have more meetings?
I think we can, as I say, the review can help us to understand those sorts of things. There are processes to do with meetings that will themselves create additional work, from public notification, chairs pre-meetings, all those sorts of things. So you are automatically creating several hours every time you do a meeting. And that's the other reason to be cautious about filling up all of your monthly meetings, is that that's what the officer team would feed into the review, is that we need time between meetings too, to be able to do the work that you've asked us to do. And if we're meeting all the time, it's much harder to, and then things like my town clerk, we're doing monthly council meetings. Okay, well, just a month since the last meeting, so we haven't had time to do it yet. So it's just sort of, it's just finding that. I'm not saying we have got the balance right, but say that's why we're having the reviews to turn up. We're really hearing the comments now in terms of helping to inform the review that we're doing.
Councillor Rutland.
This one, we've got a meeting that's got as long an agenda as this. Maybe starts at 6 instead of 7. Because obviously if we start earlier, we'll finish sooner.
Again, the time's going to be something we want to look at in the review, certainly.
I'm conscious people who work as well. I was just going to say, so for those children, 6 is challenging, but also nobody wants to be at meetings that could have been an email.
Councillor Tanici.
I think Pakistan's law, work will expand to fit the time available for it. And if you can have 10 meetings or 12 meetings a year, I'm sure we'll still spend 3 hours per meeting. So I think, and it does cost money. If you look at the visit time, we've got 3 visitors here today, times 4, times 3 hours. And if you add that as well, that's money as well. So I agree with the town clerk that we should try to keep it brief. And that's, I'm a professional.
Thank you, and I vote for staying with 7. I know we're not voting by the time, but 6 o'clock would be too difficult for those who are still working on different flexible jobs and all the rest of it. Thank you, Councillor.
I'd like to propose that we go with the meeting timetable as in the report, with the acknowledgement that the work of community services does need to be reviewed to see if it can be spread out more evenly across other committees as part of the review in the previous item.
Thank you.
So that was a proposal, was it?
That's a proposal.
Yeah.
Seconded. So, right, so we have a proposer and a seconder, then all in favour. Thank you. Any against? Abstentions? No. Thank you. Right. Discretion, I was going to say disciplinary. Final adoption of discretionary grants policy, agenda item number 14.
Yeah, this, as councillors can see, this is a clear recommendation from the FNGP, learning from the grants committees and what and strengthening practice policy based upon practice. Questions, comments, Chair? Thank you.
Councillor Rooster.
Just to say, I chaired the FNGP meeting where we looked at this discretionary grants policy. We read it through very carefully. We came up with very specific amendments, and it comes from the working group and the experience of giving out the grants this year. So this was very, and there was substantial discussion about this. So if anybody is, and that it's properly limited. So,
Thank you. Any questions? Any further? Councillor Duff?
Hi, thank you. I appreciate that. But for me, when I was reading through it, I just had a question on 1.12. It says the deadline may be considered, and then the one underneath 2.1, £3,000 may be considered. What is the criteria that constitutes may be considered, and if the amount is over 3,000, by how much? It just seemed a bit vague, may. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor.
Oh, yeah, so 2.1, yeah, grants may be considered. I think this is the purpose of these points, these clauses, are to recognise that the committee are not absolutely, completely restricted to the limits within the policy. So it's simply to allow the committee some discretion in exceptional circumstances to, for example, make a grant award of over £3,000. So I think the wording is, in that sense, is deliberate. In other words, it's saying it's exceptional, so it would be an unusual occurrence, and may be considered. So it just is anticipating the committee may face a situation where they would wish to make a larger award and to have a policy that allows them to do it.
Thank you. Councillor Vera?
Yes, I believe community bus is a specific example of it going over £3,000.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay. We are asked to adopt the revised discretionary grants policy as recommended by the Finance General Purposes Committee. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Rooster, and then the second by Councillor Bristow, and then all in favour.
Thanks everyone, Chair. Thank you.
Right, agenda item number 15, financial regulations review, to present review of Town Council's financial regulations.
Yes, this is something that's reviewed by Council regularly. As the report explains, we're asking councillors to maintain the current regulations until we have the outcome of NOUT's current process. And that's explained within the report and the regs are attached. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any comments? Councillor Wright?
Sorry, I've read this a few times before. I've only just spotted this one thing. It's on page 55, and it's in the row labelled 25,000 to 49,999.
Yeah.
It's the third paragraph down.
Yeah.
Unless the town council chooses to use an existing list of approved suppliers framework agreement.
Yes.
Could you say framework agreement on the website? Where's the list of approved suppliers and who's the town council, who decides?
Okay.
Thank you.
So this, basically the financial regulations enable the council, should it wish to have framework agreements for particular services. My understanding is that officers expect that to happen in future. But the capacity to do it is already within our financial regulations. It says, obviously, where there are no framework agreements, that sentence simply doesn't stand, and you follow the rest of the box within the policy.
Okay. And who is the town council? The town council chooses.
Well, that would mean that if a framework agreement list is developed, that full council would vote to adopt it.
So can it say full council?
I think that's what full council is acting as town council, if that makes sense. The normal form of words would be town council, but that's how it would be done.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Councillor Richard Holman's question.
I'm quite concerned at the moment on this report about the general reserves. That used to be used quite a lot in the previous administration. So can you explain what the general reserves and where and when they can be used, why is it in this particular? We've got earmark reserves, but not general reserves. At the moment it's quite a significant amount. That doesn't seem to be.
Is there a particular part of the financial regulations you're asking about?
Yeah, about the use of general reserves.
Which section of the?
But it's not anything, that's what I want to know.
There's nothing, you're saying that.
It's either been deliberately ignored.
Right, okay.
Or it doesn't have to go in there. And if so, how is it dealt with anyway?
All right.
General reserves are quite a big bit, and maybe it doesn't have to go in this financial regulations, but it is quite a big aspect of any councils, or any town parish council is general reserves. I can't see it anyway.
No, that's the case. So that essentially, the use of general reserves are are basically managed by all of the council's policies in terms of it to do with expenditure and risk. So essentially, general reserves are available for the council to use, but they have to use them according to council policy. There is, in relation to general reserves, there have, in terms of when the budget, there's certainly been some policy and practice around maintaining a certain level of general reserves, and that was part of our budget setting process to do that. But as I say, there's no requirement under the NOUT model for there to be anything particularly related to general reserves, because that's considered to be governed by all of your finance policies.
So quick come back. Obviously, the last item which we'll discuss before we go into the exec session, you're saying that you can't use general reserves for that. Because I'll go through the processes when we get to the item on the members' allowances. I think there's something wrong with the process that haven't followed anyway. But I'll wait till we get there and I'll explain the reason why. Because what I'm disappointed on the matter one, Chair, is that the clerk doesn't want to follow the recommendations. And if we do start, it can start in 25-26 and not 24-25. And the independent report
Can we talk about that when we
does
get
say
to
starting in
agenda
24.
item, please?
Well,
So on that point,
that's for the council to determine when we get to that.
so it's up to the council to determine
Can
what
we
to use
discuss that when we
line.
get to that agenda
Okay,
item?
thank you, Jim.
Councillor Lindsay Stern.
This is purely a query, page 57. Does the reference to the European Commission and the official journal of the European Union, does that refer to a matter of retained EU law, or is it a hang-up of text that should have been excised?
Our understanding is this is retained law, and so we're following the formal ways you'll find in any documents relating to this level of funding where it's public funding. Obviously, we will endeavour to make sure that if that was ever changed, this would obviously change as well. But we're following now in terms of maintaining this wording at this stage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, any further questions? Right, we are asked to note that the National Association of Local Councils is working on updating its 2019 Model Recreations for England and Wales, and 2, to re-adopt the financial regulations as presented in report 185/23 with the NS Recreations page numbers. Now, I would suggest that we take the two together. Can I have a proposer, please, Councillor and seconder, Councillor Stern, and then all in favour? Thank you. Right, agenda item number 16, which is to present the annual investment strategy 2024 to 2025 for adoption.
Okay, I think, Chair, I'm happy to take questions from the floor. Thank you.
Any questions? Oh, Councillor Rooster.
I teach equity, which is all about investment, so I thought, who best to ask questions? One question, basically, can you just explain why we are using the prudence standard in 3.2 on the investment strategy, and whether there's any scope for using reasonable instead of prudence? Prudence requires you to be very, very safe.
Yeah.
Reasonable allows us to take a little bit more risk on, and obviously the additional profits. So, yeah, is there a reason we've chosen prudence?
I think this is a historic recommendation from our RFO. I think it's based upon the fact that on occasions, town councils have needed to be quite risk averse in terms of how they manage their finances, including this council. As we know, I always touch wood at this point. At the moment, the council is in a relatively healthy financial position. So I think this, although we have to legally agree our investment strategy now once a year at this stage, Councillor, I think it might be something to consider when the budget is being set for next year, whether the investment budget that we set might be based upon some different assumptions and you want to amend the policy. So if I can ask FGB to remember to do that later in the year, then we can consider it.
I would be delighted for FGB for us to talk about that. Councillor Heron.
Yeah, just to follow on from Councillor Sturgeon's point, I do think it is perhaps there could be an opportunity to bring more money into the town council to perhaps keep down the precepts that we need to use in the future. But at the moment, I don't think it's the time to raise it with the financial uncertainty or the various scope of the economy. So I'm quite happy to endorse this the way that it is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Right, we are asked to adopt the annual investment strategy 2024 to 2025 as set out in Appendix A, and then to note the contents of the report, and I was going to take them together. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Hurren, a seconder, Councillor Sturton, and all in favour. Thank you. Right, agenda item number 17, annual review of corporate risk register 2024.
Again, similar to the last item, this is a required annual review of a particular council policy, a very important council policy. I think the most important thing to say about this policy is this is about what we describe as corporate risks. In other words, risks for individual projects, activities and assets are managed within the management of those projects, activities and assets. And this is all the overall corporate risk register only. The scoring and rationale are explained within the report. That's you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Bristol.
Yeah, thank you very much for preparing this. It's really interesting. And I wanted to make a point which is kind of for future action and future notes, and not for today. But maybe something we can look at as a council between now and the same exercise next year. And that is being aware of the guidance to government from the Committee on Climate Change, which was the statutory advisor, and things which go through the local government association and others. There seems to be more and more call for councils of all shapes and sizes to be considering explicitly the risks which come to them as a result of changing climate change. Obviously there are primary and secondary, some of that stuff that we already taken account of in terms of insurance and so on, but some other things might not be, particularly here. You know, we've had wildfires and increasingly stormy seas. So just a sort of note, perhaps something we can keep an eye on that and consider it in due course, so that we're cognizant of it. So it's rather than sort of looking at the effects on climate more widely, it's actually the effect of climate change on the risks that the council might be taking and how it manages those.
Thank you, Councillor.
Any further questions? Thank you. I'm going to take this together to note the review of the Town Council's corporate risk register and to adopt the required general compliant financial risk assessment as presented in Appendix A. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Bristow and a second Councillor Sturton, and then all in favour. Right, agenda item number 18, which is the annual review of internal controls to allow full council to review and approve the Town Council's internal controls.
Again, I think the detail is set out within the report in terms of what's being controlled, if you like, and how is that being done. So again, I'm very happy to take questions from councillors.
Any questions? No? No? Right, I'm going to suggest we take them together. So, full council is recommended to review, comment upon and approve the Town Council's internal controls as set out in Appendix A. 2, to note that statements 2, 5, 6 and 7 of the annual governance statement have been complied with as per report 187/23. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Walraven and seconder, Councillor Taylor, and then all in favour. Agenda item number 19. To consider a 3-year agreement with the current appointed internal auditor, Mulberry & Co.
Again, as the report explains, yes, these are our current internal auditors. The report explains why the recommendation is to audit the Mulberries again.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. In fact, the current auditors, as I read this, Mulberry and Co, been the auditors for 10 years, even though they say, this is a change within that group. That seems quite a long time to stick with one auditing firm, or maybe it isn't, and that may be very naive of me to say that, but that's what strikes me about this, as to whether it's time for a change. Not because there's any specific concerns. I have no concerns about Mulberry and Co. It's not about that. It's about whether this is. We have to be seen to be
transparent,
firm, and equitable.
Thank you, Councillor Anthony.
Thank you. I like Mulberry and Co, and indeed I work in my day job. We do use them as well. So they're very professional, and so there's no reason to that. But I think the JPEG does say that the internal auditor we use, and I think 410 says there must be actual or perceived conflict of interest, and 4.10 of JPEG says, and I will read this very slowly because of my accent, it's probably my understanding. It says, conflict of interest must be avoided, such as in cases where an external provider of accounting services to the authority also offers internal audit services through an associated company. So effectively, Mulberry and Co are offering us services of RFO, and now we're actually taking them in as internal auditor to audit the job, to audit the work of the RFO. So effectively, there is at least some perceived conflict of interest. And I think 410 of JPAC states that quite clearly. It's in black and white. It's not disputed. So I think from that reason, even though I have every respect and I don't doubt the integrity of Mulberry and Co, I think there is going to be a perceived conflict of interest. And I think 410 of the JPAC, except the town can tell me where our 410 of the JPAC does not debar Mulberry and Co from being an auditor for the next 3 years. So, so my view is that we need to go back and get somebody else.
What I would say, I completely take Councillor Antonici's point, I take Councillor Taylor's point as well. I think it's very important to ask the questions that you do. I think that when the temporary RFO arrangements were put in place, which obviously have ended now because now we have our new RFO, well, on the 1st of April we have a new RFO, you know what I mean. That Mulberry and Co agreed with the council some measures to manage that conflict of interest, because it was identified at that point rather than being identified now. So there's some measures were put in place to satisfy the parties around avoidance of conflict of interest in relation to the use of the review.
Any further questions? Councillor Mead.
Just a comment really. I absolutely understand what Councillor Taylor is saying and Councillor Antonisi, and I just think it's a bit unfortunate that Mulberry and Co kind of cornered the market. They've got 200 town and parish councils over 16 counties, and they're founder members of this, and they've obviously it's like Google. You can't you have to buy into it, don't you? Particularly as they're going to give us such a good deal, so I think they've got us by the short and curlies in some ways. So don't know why we do it. If anyone's got some other auditors they know well and think they could give us a good deal, maybe council could suggest that.
Sorry, Councillor Law.
I was just saying, sure. First of all, if it's not broken, why fix it? But one particular auditor who deals with the vast majority of local government, they know how local government works, they know how local government's funded, they know to request funds from local government to Lewis District Council, because everybody thinks we get £1 million per year. No, it comes in instalments, and they know when we ask them when the instalments come through. They can audit when it comes through per calendar month, which is then given to Seaford Town Council, and it's spent accordingly, and they know the auditing problem. Their spreadsheets are designed to make simplification of auditing in local governments. I don't deal with them personally, and regarding council as an agent, I think you should have declared interest, council engineer. If you have used them in the past, I think you should have declared an interest in them. But that's my own personal problem. If it's not broken, use them.
I did talk to the town clerk before the meeting, and I got advice, and I was told it's not an interest to be declared.
That's okay, fine.
So I had to do
that,
integrity, and I will not pay. I will not pay.
Yeah, just two questions. One, what other internal auditors looked at prior to this meeting? And secondly, if we do reject this motion tonight, what actually happens next?
Okay, well, what would happen next was we would seek to find alternative internal auditors. I think that the finance manager here has obviously been considering in drawing up this report what alternatives are available. And of course we want to make sure our councils have freedom of choice, we have transparency, due process, and we don't want to enter into arrangements that appear to be unchallenged or unchallengeable. But at the same time, as has been alluded to, if you speak to most town councils, they would recommend Mulberry's to you. So that's the position that we're in.
Council Engineers, you're still in sort of flow.
Can I just to clarify, had the town clerk's response to my concern, I have withdrawn my concern. I'm happy that if you put plans in place to address the conflicts of interest, then I'm satisfied.
Councillor Taylor?
A couple of things. First of all, I think, with respect to what you're saying, Councillor Lord, that if it ain't broken, don't fix it. We don't actually know if it's broken because perception is as significant as reality in this situation. I'm not suggesting it is broken, but I think the fact we've had this conversation, we've evaluated it, we haven't just pushed it through, is quite important. And that would satisfy my particular concern.
Councillor Matthews?
The proposal is for the contract to be for 3 years. Why is it 3 years and does it have to be for 3 years?
Those are the normal arrangements for these arrangements to be made. Councils normally do them on a 3-year cycle. That's what 3 years is.
Sorry, it's Councillor Bristol.
Yeah, just a quick question with regards to something the town clerk said not long ago about the RFO having considered this and written the report and so on. And why have no other options been presented to us? We've only been presented with the one option. We haven't been presented with any others, and that doesn't seem to give us much of a balance in terms of informing our freedom of choice. My concern is that we've already had 2 durations of the recommended change of 5 years. We have actually come under quite a lot of scrutiny as a council in terms of what we're doing financially, so on and so forth. It might be a good idea to consider changing them now, seeing as change, according to JPAG, is actually quite overdue. Yes, they seem to have a lot of the market, but they don't have all of the market. And if everyone continues to go with them all the time, every time, they will only ever have most of the market, which actually isn't good for any market. So there we are.
Councillor Roosdown.
I have some concerns about the length of time that we have been using this particular firm. And a very quick Google search does tell me that there are other firms that do this work. So could I suggest, and I'm not sure if it's a proposal yet, but can we consider that if we were to approve this contract, this agreement, that at the end of it we are presented with alternatives to consider alongside this one next time? So essentially, why have we not had the alternatives? So if we approve a 3-year agreement, then it would be...
No, when is this current contract up?
No.
No, exactly.
That's what it's formally introduced.
I presume it's the financial year.
It finishes in 2023.
Yes, then it could have gone for the financial. We'll have all this conversation again.
Sorry, I'm still
So
unclear.
the three-year period is 2.6, says the 3-year period.
But when does what they're saying is when does the one that we're on at the moment currently finish?
This, so 20, it's finishing now essentially, 23-24.
Yes, so that's saying the financial year is normally what finishes April.
Yes.
Yeah, so we've only got
3 days.
3 days earlier. Councillor Antonigi.
I totally agree with some of the discussions. Normally, you would expect to at least have 2 or 3 suppliers or at least in the report. But I do think that this is year end. Our AGA starts now, basically from the 1st of February, from the 1st of April, we have to start doing the AGA, and sometime in May, you need your internal audit to send your report to the external auditor in July. I think it's the 1st of July that year. So I don't think we've got enough time now to start finding a new internal audit. If you're saying that our contract expires 23-24, then we do need an internal auditor in place before May, because you do need to have internal audit in May to be approved by council to go to your external auditor. So I don't think we have much choice, but I do think we can take into account the lessons we can learn from this.
I think so, and I think it's worth saying that on the 1st of April we have our new RFO starting, so we're essentially she'll be in a much better position then to be able to do the work that councillors are asked to take place, and the points are completely held.
Councillor Russell.
Hi, I'm very disappointed that this has come to us yet again at the last minute for us to make a decision on something that's going to run out in days. It's really not acceptable. So I'd like to find out how this has happened, and also if we don't want to approve these contractors, I don't want to be from-matched into having them. So, not for the next 3 years. If we have to have somebody appointed in the day after this contract finishes, is that the case? And if so, can we just have them for 1 year and look to change them? Is that an option, please?
Councillor DeBus, I was going to wonder the same if we could just do a year, because we've been put in this, we're in this situation where we've only got a few days to make this decision. For this to, so I'm wondering whether the same as you, whether we can just turn it into 1 year only. That gives us time to sort this out.
The councils are free to make such an amendment if they should they wish.
Yes, so I think we have that as a proposal then, that we have it for in 1 year only, so we have time to bring it back to another full council when we can actually look at this more in depth.
Okay.
Councillor?
I mean, that might be subject to negotiations with the firm, obviously, because if it's a 1 year contract rather than a 3 year, it might change the prices. Subject to that being agreed, I would also like to add to that amendment that at the end of that term, we are offered more than one option of auditors as well. Because there might be very good reasons why Mulberry & Co were better than all the alternatives, but I would like to have seen those reasons at this meeting.
Can I add to that actually we don't want to be doing it in April. Can we do it in January at the latest?
Okay.
Anyone else any questions? Right, so we have proposed on the table that we consider approval of a 1 year agreement, but do you have to go back to them first? No, George is saying no. Right. To consider an approval of a 1 year agreement with a current appointed auditor, Mulberry & Co, and sorry, Fred, can you...
And at the end of that year, when the next internal auditor is appointed, to be presented with multiple options.
3 options.
Councillor Hayman?
So if they refuse, then what's happened to the default line? If they don't want to 1 year, especially if they go to lots of money, which makes it almost like 2 years anyway.
I guess we'll have to, I think we cross that bridge. Yes.
Just to say, in the report, in the financial places, it does talk about the hourly fee if we do just go for a running agreement.
Yeah.
That is an option on the table. What they've basically done is just said there's the option of doing 3 years and you'll get a slightly reduced fee. So there's no reason
That's
why.
helpful, thank you, George. Yeah, 3.2 does explain the financial differences. That's a good point.
Has everyone read the reminder for 3.2? So is everyone happy to still go with the proposal for 1 year?
Yeah.
Right. Please can we have, so we already have a proposer, I've seconded it, and then all in favour? Thank you. Oh, any against? Any abstentions?
Thank you, everyone.
Right, agenda item number 20, Cookme and Buses proposed grant funding agreement.
Okay, so again, this, as the report explains, this has really come out of the work of the grants committee, grants working group and F&GP committee, who basically have noticed the consistent support the council gives to Cookme Buses, the local service they offer, and therefore are recommending to councils that they can migrate to a 3-year annual grant applications. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions? Councillor Warren.
Thank you. I fully support this because Cookme Buses is a voluntary organisation and they particularly run 120 bus, which is in the Bishopstown area, and they do a fantastic job. I can't praise them high enough because the drivers are brilliant. They look after, the older passengers, which, have disabilities. They are fantastic, and I fully support this.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Sturm.
Very brief comment. I support the proposal entirely and thank Councillor Walraven for her comments. I just wonder if Cookme Buses is exceptional as providing part of the public transport infrastructure for Seaford, but is there perhaps other organisations within providing services within Seaford, and I'm thinking about Citizens of Advice, that we might in future consider supporting on a similar basis? This is important, of course, for planning, and to be able to project your income or grant support over years to come is an important part of an organisation's ability to deliver services. And I think I just want to acknowledge that this may provide a model that we might want to resort to in other cases in future.
Thank you, Councillor. So it may not be clear to all new councillors, we have an SLA agreement with the CAB already. But this is going to be the second example. So CAB and then Cookme Buses would be our second one. Obviously, councils may wish to consider in the future if there are other frequently funded organisations who might migrate to this, but that's something for a future meeting.
Thank you. Right, so I'm going to suggest that we take all three together. So that's to approve that 3-year grant fund agreement be entered into with Cookme Buses, to approve the level of grant funding given to Cookme Buses being set at £2,500 per annum over the course of the funding agreement, to delegate powers to the town clerk and responsible finance officer in consultation with the Mayor and Chair of Finance and General Purposes to finalise the service fund agreement based upon discussion with Cookme Buses. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Walraven and the seconder, Councillor Taylor. All in favour? I'm actually just going to suggest, as it is now 9:15, that we just take a very quick 5-minute just 5 minutes only. I'm just going to start the meeting again. Right, we are asked to bring full council proposals from Lewis District Council for a high street audit for Seaford, including a financial contribution from the town council.
Thank you, Chair. I think the report sets out the context for this work in terms of, obviously, the town council is looking to do particular pieces of work in relation to our town centre over the months ahead. And it's really for councillors to determine the extent to which, therefore, becoming involved with and supporting the district-wide high street audit can help to add value to our work and therefore agree to proposals, if you like, or whether councillors would prefer to plough a more independent furrow instead. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Roth?
I think it's a lot of money to give LDC. My first thought when I read this is, yeah, it's quite a good idea, but a lot of it's duplicated already, like cycle paths. And wouldn't that be a good project for Seaford Head Sixth Form students to take on board and do it for us for free? What do people think of that?
Councillor Meek?
I'm on the District Council, but I must say I was a little bit cynical about this. I thought, Scope 2 is all about Charleston and Lewis. So I was a little bit cynical about that, and I thought, I mean, some of this is pretty elementary stuff. We all know about the problems with the crossings and the problems we've got, which is kind of fairly common knowledge. I don't know whether an auditor is going to actually discover any more for us than we already know for ourselves, and has already been done by SCP and other people in the town, particularly to with cycle routes and things like that. So I'm a little sceptical about it, quite frankly.
Thank you. Councillor Mark?
Yes, I'm kind of follow a train of thought with Councillor Meek, thank you. Obviously I sit on Chamber of Commerce and I sit on Impact Seaford, and I'm just wondering for both of those organisations, outside bodies, how this might relate. It hasn't come to us on those bodies, so it feels like there needs to be perhaps a bit more consultation with others, and whether we should involve the traders and how that might happen before we make that decision. We've been talking already about how organisations that we're already working with are really struggling, like CAB, and they're prepared to give £5,000 to someone for an organisation where we know, as I say, we have quite a lot of the information already. Certainly, looking at the town centre is on our priority list, on our strategic plan. We're very concerned about that. But it's also something that we would want to do by gathering information ourselves and get involved. So certainly questions about how our engagement will be as councillors in that is obviously will be very important for us to also find out as to which councillors would represent and discuss this. So I do think who's on the working group, for example, would be another piece of information that I'd certainly want to know and understand myself before I supported it.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Bristow was just ahead of Councillor
Stone.
Stone.
Go first. No, I've just found the information I needed.
All right, okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's sort of like, it's good in many ways, but I've got a few things that I'd like to know more, really, I suppose. Like, you know, I'm also a bit concerned about the route that this has come. I think it's a good thing that it has come and that we get to discuss it. We've been told who was in the proposed core project team. I'm slightly, I'd like to know what the project team's qualifications are. I mean, I know obviously some of them work in regeneration as it is. How would the oversight of things sort of be managed practically? I'm slightly perplexed, and this is absolutely nothing against our town clerk whatsoever, in fact quite the opposite. I'm perplexed why we've got the mayor of Lewis Town Council, but a town clerk, but an officer of Seaford, and why those two things are different. Surely they would be either both one or both the other. But anyway, that's absolutely nothing personal whatsoever. I was just puzzled. There's a lot of data now on the Office for National Statistics website. Census data from 2021, and they've done a whole new raft of data analysis and data presentation between the results of the 2011 census and 2021, and it's actually very well presented and quite easy to go on and look at. It does say, you know, that outputs on, sorry, page 1123.4, report contains data considering but it doesn't really, you know, to me, that's not a proper scope. That's kind of a wish list at the moment. It's not really telling me what data they're using, how they're going to analyse it, who it's intended for, how much we get to go and input into the process and say this is what we would find really valuable for Seaford. Although I do think having some kind of report like this as a baseline would probably be really useful for our future going forward. So it's not that I think the whole thing's a bad idea, but it's sort of the devil's in the detail. There's a whole bit about Charleston and so on. You know, Charleston's wonderful, and I'm sure it has some impact in Seaford. Perhaps it could have more, and vice versa. But I wonder if this is too Lewis skewed for Seaford, and perhaps hasn't really been developed thoroughly enough with Seaford stakeholders from the outset. Again, engagement of stakeholders, you know, traders, Chamber of Commerce, so on. And presumably this would take up some additional officer time from Seaford Town Council, not just our town clerk and the others up on the working group. And sort of how is that envisaged to come in, and will we be involving, you know, the likes of Impact Seaford and Chamber of Commerce, traders, so on and so forth. So I just have a lot of questions, I'm afraid. I do apologise. Yeah, that's my thinking.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Councillor Bristow. I mean, I share a lot of those questions. I do think this is an important project. It's meaning the regeneration of Seaford. That's what's in my mind. And it's one I would very much like to see happen. Whether we do it separately from Lewis, given the structure of the district council and the town council, is a moot point, because we can't just go ahead and order. It frustrates me beyond belief that we can't just go ahead and buy a new play park for Bishopstone Ward, because it's about the district council, it's not about us. That drives me bananas, and it's a crazy system, and we're stuck with it here. Other parts of the country have sorted that out. We have not. So my worry about going in singly is that we will be cutting off our noses by our face. Something like that, if that makes any sense.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor
Yes, I'm slightly confused with who actually the consultant is within the documents. Like, is the consultant yet to be appointed? I would also note £5,000 isn't a huge amount of money either. Like, it does have the potential to unlock some regeneration funding that is much larger if the project goes well. But what I would say is, from reading through the documents and not being entirely sure who the consultant are, and not being entirely convinced on what the audit is actually going over, I don't think it will unlock those funds.
Councillor Bristow.
Can I make a proposal?
Yep.
That we have further talks with LDC. I don't know how time limited this is or isn't. I don't know if you're able to tell me this sort of offer that's on the table. That we go back and have some more discussions with their regeneration team and address some of these concerns and see how open they are to working with us a bit more collaboratively, sort of from the outset. I'm slightly concerned that we might end up being poor relation to Lewis focus here, as we so often are in Seaford, despite being the largest population town. Sorry? Yeah, quite different. You know, perhaps with a view to reconsidering this in due course.
I think I completely take Councillor Bristow's point. Just briefly, Chair, I want to say that I really like this group because I was really looking forward to this discussion because I knew that there was such a lot of expertise in this room. It's been great to hear the comments made so far. What I couldn't find a way of writing down, and maybe not even so publicly, if you know what I mean, fully publicly, is what we want to do ourselves with our town centre and our strategic plan requires our cooperation with our strategic partners. and as Councillor Taylor's really identified, really, if we want to achieve change through our work, we'll need to work with our strategic partners. And we don't have access to the funds. Lewis and County do have access to the funds. And so working with them is our way of accessing the funds. I completely take all the points that have been made, and I agree with most of them. And I have to just say, without becoming unprofessional at any point, the first time I knew it was on this group was when I read it on the bit of paper, so there we go. So that came as news to me too, frankly. But I think what was in their minds was actually deliberately having a councillor and an officer from the town councils together to get that range, I think is what's in their mind. And that's how come I found myself lucky enough to be volunteered for it, if that makes sense. But leaving that comment aside, I completely take the points around the table, but I guess what I couldn't write down was to say that in the reality of the world where we're living, we probably should take this opportunity up simply to help our chances of accessing future funding. I take your point as well, Councillor. I don't necessarily think this report on its own would be the way to do that, but we have to have that relationship with them to access that funding.
Councillor Wall-Raven.
Thank you. I mean, when I first read this, I thought, no. But I'm still in two minds. I don't know. I understand where I don't quite understand from. But is that just a one-off payment? Will we be asked for more?
Yeah.
So there won't be any more.
On my understanding is this is a one-off. But again, I was really clear. I mean, unfortunately, I've not helped the timelines that you've talked about, Councillor Bristow, because I've insisted to LDC that you guys make this decision, which is why this decision has been made now, which means it's being made quite close to the work, so we haven't got some of the time we might have hoped for, if that makes sense. But I didn't feel comfortable this being decided without coming to you, so that's why we're doing it this way.
Was Councillor Lindsay Stone.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I wonder if we could ask a little bit about the timing of this and the timeliness. Councillor Hurrow raised the possibility that this might unlock further regeneration funding, but it's at least conceivable that within only a few months we will have a different government in Westminster with different priorities, different schemes and all that. So with all that in mind, how much will this be of enduring value at this particular moment, as opposed to my question?
Absolutely fair. I think, again, I'm conscious of time, Chair, but I would have to say that since coming to this role in 2020, it's become really apparent that Seaford has really struggled to access funds, historically. And I did a lot of work in 2021 for levelling up, and the money went to New Haven. And what was the challenge? But rather than just be sort of chippy Seaford mode about it, to understand what was going on, is that L. Lewis and the broader funders, National Fund, don't have a Seaford narrative. There's no narrative for them to fund. So the cart and horse is that unless we develop a narrative, we'll never get the funding. But if we don't think we're going to get the funding, we never bother doing the narrative. So that's how we get, that's the sort of cart and horse that we're stuck in a little bit, really. So I'm trying to work out a way of seeing how that may change without being naive enough to think that one single project is going to achieve that change.
Councillor Marlborough.
Oh, thank you very much, Town Clerk, for your response there. I think that's really helpful. I was just looking at the project team. I think it's great that you've been volunteered, but I would also hope that you took one of our councillors with you, because I think otherwise this is going to be very top-heavy with a lot of other people, and Seaford is not otherwise going to be listed or mentioned. So I think if we do want to have our voices heard, then we should be there representing the residents of Seaford through our elected councillors, as well as whoever else what officers would go through. And I think, genuinely, I think there is a collaborative moment there, because it's an opportunity to provide not only then discussion back here in Seaford as to what's going on. I think it's very supportive to do that. I think also it's about bringing in appropriate expertise, and as you know, in front of you we have lots of expertise, and there may well be some a councillor who can bring some of their expertise to that discussion and to that table, and can spread it around the councillor colleagues as well. So that's just a proposal if we decide to go with this.
Okay, Councillor Honeymoon.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes. Well, it is vague. This report in a sense vague, but it's still very vague, and I don't dismiss that. I mean, we say about Seaford itself, that, you know, look at the Labour plan, the Labour project, standalone, as well as being part of the Labour plan. As far as I know, Lewis, this council didn't want to touch that. Now, does that come on the high still? Is that too far away from the high street?
I think it's too far away. I mean, I would never wish to sound like a defender of Lewis District Council in my role as Seaford. But I know informally, behind scenes, that Lewis District Council spends a lot of time and effort on doing that. So it's not for the want of trying from them that project isn't working, to be fair to them. But at the same time, it shows the challenges that we face. So I think it's a very relevant example to raise.
So my other point is, if this goes on most 24, I don't know what the timescale is, no one knows, it's a bit vague to say. If this feeds into like this local plan, and again the Labour plan, and New Haven Labour plan, and Lewis Labour plan, because they will be updated soon as well.
Yeah.
That sounds a bit more positive. If it's really standalone, then I'm a bit more. I think. You're a very wise councillor, Honeyman, because I've tried to make some strategic connections here. And what I'm saying is that with this work taking place this year, this is how I see how it can be joined into our work. Yeah. But you're right about Labour plan as well. It will fit. Therefore, you would hope that they would also inform Labour plan review that we know will come at some point reasonably soon. As I say, the advice from Steve Tilson, the expert, is you do it a period of time after the local plan has been agreed. So we don't know when the local plan is going to be agreed, but that gives you a rough idea of when Labour plan is going to happen as well.
Okay, thank you. I've got time.
Just one point, if we just do decide to go ahead, so 3.3,
yes.
The audit will need to include. Reading through that list, it's very much about geography, buildings, transport.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the thing that's missing is people and demographic makeup. And I think it's really important, actually crucial to this, especially if you look at the Seaford, Lewis and New Haven, are demographically very different, geographically very different. And I think that is absolutely crucial to understanding any of this other data. So if we are to go ahead, can we insist that
we can suggest.
We can suggest people.
There's good suggestions to see. Thank you, Councillor.
Right, thank you. I'm going to wrap this up because time is really pulling on, and we've still got agenda items to do.
Yeah.
Right, so agenda item 4 councillors recommended to agree to take part in Lewis District Council's High Street audit and provide £5,000 of funds towards the project. Can I have a proposal? Was there any amendments? No, there wasn't.
I think there's been points of feedback, but I don't think
there's been no.
actually.
That's fine. I just wanted to check.
So,
Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Gray, and then a seconder, Councillor Sturton, and then all in favour.
It's only £5 million. 25 grand. 500.
I think that's 10.
10, and then against.
We'll soon see from my maths, won't we? So 1 against.
Any abstentions?
Any abstentions or
Sitting on the fence on
yeah,
that's 5
I can't
abstentions.
stand.
Is 10,000 one way? That's 16 million. It's a majority cost.
Fences in high street.
Okay, so it's not a lot of
Right, agenda item number 21, to provide an update on the review of the lease for Seaford farmland on Seaford. Sorry. 22. Oh, sorry. Trying to rush but getting it wrong. Agenda item 22, to provide an update on the review of the lease for Seaford farmland on the Seaford Head Estate.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really grateful to the Head of Asset Project Services for putting with support from other officers as well to put this information together. As the report makes clear, we've tabled this now to enable you to consider this later. But we didn't want to get too far much further in the process without you all being aware that this process is taking place. So again, very happy to take any questions or comments, Chair, but essentially we're noting the progress this evening on deciding what to do.
Any comments? Councillor Mead.
I just wanted to say that I think we should just note this. I think it's providing lots of possibilities going forward, and there'll be lots of opportunity to discuss all this later. I think they've noticed various things which I imagine that the Head of Assets mentioned to them, and they kind of endorsed that. So I think that's really good. And I don't see any reason to not approve in principle for this going forward.
Councillor Buchanan.
Thank you. Just a quick one. At what point would you see Appendix A down the holding?
That would be the next time the council's considered the report.
And before the final.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But just to be clear, because I completely when we were looking at this together, George and I, in terms of what to include and not to, we had that question in our minds. We didn't want this to become an exempt item, so that's why we done this.
Councillor Herrick.
I'm second Councillor Mead's.
Sorry, does that mean that the plan exists?
It means that we. It means there's some information about it, but we didn't want to present it at this stage because of the risk of exemption.
Thank you. Any further questions? Right, so we are asked to note the contents of the professional report, assisting with the review of the Seaford farm lease, and then 2, to note the final lease will be brought before full council for approval at a later date. I'm going to take them together. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Mead. Yeah.
Councillor Morrow, second.
We're done. All in favour?
That's everyone, Chair. Thank you.
Agenda item number 23, to present an opportunity for the Town Council to take on ownership of 3 new bus shelters within the town.
Thank you, Chair. As the report explains, we already manage 5 bus shelters, and the deal is with our statutory partners that they'll give us some new ones if we look after them. So here's an example of that, with 3 new ones being offered to us if we take on responsibility. Therefore, in the report, I've done my best to estimate the financial implications of so doing, with obviously that's not an absolute guarantee because we can never be absolutely sure how much maintenance a bus shelter will need. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions, Councillor Taylor?
Two points. Under 3.1b, actually, there's 2 bus stops. One is Bishopston and one is Marine Drive on opposite sides of the road. I'm very familiar with these bus stops because they are regularly vandalised.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that the cost that we have, it's not mentioned here, and should be considered in relation to planning the new ones, is about the rate of vandalisation and how often this has to be fixed.
Yes. As I say, we've done our best to put all the costs that we're aware that we have been charged for are within the report. It might be that there's been work on some of these 5 bus shelters that haven't come at us. I don't know.
I did wonder about that.
So that too, with the figures being so low. But having said that, of course, the 3 new bus shelters are, it's worth noting their locations and trying our best to fathom out how risky they would be.
Right, Councillor Walraven next.
Thank you. Actually, I think that the 3.1b is should either be Marine Parade and not Marine Drive.
Okay.
Because the bus shelter at Bishopstone Crossroads, we don't own.
Yeah, okay.
And I just wondered if we can do some form of advertising in our bus shelters to help with
We've asked about that.
local businesses.
And basically East Sussex have said that they are looking into getting planning permission for that in terms of electronic advertising, and obviously we'd be able to take advantage of that once they have that permission, although they haven't given us a timescale on when they're going to get the permission, so we're not quite sure.
Councillor Lord?
Yeah, it's only a quick one. We take on liability for bus shelters. Will it affect our public liability insurance and our asset insurance, because we take on three things which will affect our corporate insurance? And in addition to what Councillor Taylor said, bus shelters are invariably, particularly on a Friday and a Saturday night, subject to intense vandalism.
Yeah.
So if they're subject to vandalism, will we then, as Seaford Town Council, be liable for making these? And so then it becomes, we take on not an asset but a liability.
Yes.
And I'm quite conscious of what's happening to liability. The bus shelters, even in the centre of town, near the railway station. You go there on a weekend, Sunday morning, well, the trains don't run Sunday morning, but when you go past them, the bus shelters are always bashed up.
Yeah.
So I think, well, if we wouldn't take three on, I would give things away. It's like giving a car away, provided I don't maintain it. And so to be honest, I think the town council should consider very carefully not taking on assets but liabilities, because we're taking on, after say 5 or 10 years, what happens then if the people decide not to renew them and people get used to them? But then Seaford Town Council's been maintaining them to provide new bus shelters. So I mean, just think very, very carefully before you say yes.
Councillor DeVos?
Thank you. How was the need for these bus shelters identified? Why have they just suddenly been offered to us?
That would be from East Sussex's own work. They do. That comes from the assessment by East Sussex themselves.
Councillor Bristow's next.
Yeah, I was just wondering a little bit related to Councillor Lord's point. What are the restrictions or not in terms of what we can do with them in the future? I mean, do they say you have to maintain them and you have to have a certain seat like this and a covering like that? Because I'm just wondering, with regards to them potentially being a liability, that's obviously a big consideration, even though there's only three. But could it be an opportunity to, for example, if we had a fleet of 8 bus stops, start doing something for biodiversity and using different materials and green roofs as they've done in Holland and are doing in, tell me if I'm wrong, I think New Haven are doing something in other local places, and perhaps use some novel materials so that they don't get bashed up quite so often. I don't know, just another way of looking at things, but I am concerned about costs of abandonment.
Councillor Hayman?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think the free advertised ones are quite prominent positions, and they'll have the major bus services on them. The existing one, I mean, the one in my Barn Rise, I mean, that is pretty dilapidated. I don't know how. I mean, only spending how much are they spending? About £500 just to check them through a year for £500 each. It's not an awful lot of money for £100. And at the moment, the rust is really quite bad on the base of the one at Barn Rise. So I'd like to know what the existing maintenance schedule is and what standards it should be up to before you finally commit. But I'm sure that the 3 new ones would be the modern standard and everything else.
Yes.
I'm a bit concerned about the existing ones even.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor?
I just wanted to say, apropos of what Councillor Bristow just suggested, that I understand there are bus shelters now can be made out of more robust materials than the old bus shelters. Believe me, I've had a number of conversations with us about bus shelters, and but they are more expensive. So you get what you pay for.
Thank you.
Yes, just to speak in favour, we do currently maintain some buses, as is made clear in the report. I think it is an asset because it is a public service to have a bus shelter, because it encourages people to get the bus. And the costs are fairly marginal, so I'd like to see us take this on to encourage people to get a bus.
Councillor Mark Brown?
So I agree with you, Councillor Hall, about encouraging people to take a bus. It would be great to stand in a lovely bus stop. We don't have any lovely bus stops in Seaford, and they're not maintained. People might check them and pay for checking them, but they have not been maintained very well, and they are vandalised a lot. So unless we actually are able to put some proposed costs forward for having good non-vandalised bus stops, this is not going to cost us £500 a year. It's going to cost us a lot more. There's going to be an outlay cost, and then there's going to be other costs. So I just think we need to look at the costs more before we make a decision.
Thank you. Did you?
Oh, just very quickly, do the Cookman community buses use these bus stops? No. Yes.
The new ones, not necessarily the new ones.
Well, any of them. I'm just wondering.
Councillor Mead?
I just want to put the question, why do you think we're being offered them?
I think for the reasons...
Obviously there are lifeboats.
Exactly, the reasons that council... I mean, I've tried my best to be fair to councillors here. When I first heard this, I was quite reluctant. But that's partly because I assumed we'd be spending a fortune. And I went and looked at the actual costs that have gone through our books in the last 10 years, bus shelters have. And however that's come about, not very much money.
Maybe going to those district councils.
So exactly. So far, it hasn't cost us very much money to look after these things. That doesn't mean to say that doesn't rule out future costs, but I don't have that information. This is all the information I had.
Is this again a now or thank you, Chair? Is this again a now or never decision? We've got on 5 the advertising that ESCC are going to seek relevant planning permission.
Yeah.
That could make quite a difference with costs. I mean, I'm looking at this, whole where there's crisis, there's opportunity kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to be lumbered with normal bus stops. I would be excited about doing a project which actually helps well-being and biodiversity in the town and helps people use public transport more safely. But that would take a little bit of time to properly look into, even though there have been encouraging results elsewhere. So I'm just wondering if East Sussex might be amenable to keep them for another year and offer it to us next year and find out these things, and in the meantime we do a bit of research on climate change, what we might be able to do. Should I propose that?
Do you want to do it as a proposal?
I'll just propose that and see how it goes. I'll be interested in time.
Okay, so we have a
So
proposal and a
the
second.
motion is to engage East Sussex County Council in further discussion in the hope of achieving
advertising.
Yeah.
And then
a proposal, a motion agreeable to all parties.
Yeah, something like that.
Councillor Walraven.
It was just a quick question. If we don't agree to this, will these bus stops go up anyway? Is it a cost that the East Sussex is passing on to
No,
us?
I think the cost they're passing on to us is the maintenance cost. They're going to build them, but we have to maintain them. So that wasn't clear within the report. So these bus shelters won't happen unless we agree to take them on. Is the posture fortune that we are. But it's not clear. I have not been able to get clarity from them about how long this process is going to take, how much more time there is. Does that make sense? So I don't see the harm in going back to ask them more things, if that's what you want to do. Because the worst thing they can say is that, no, you have to just decide now, in which case we'll come back in May and say, you've got to agree.
Let's make the decision on when.
Okay, Councillor Bristow, we're really close to 10 now.
just to come back, sorry, I misunderstood. I thought these were existing ones that they were wanting to shed, not new ones they were going to build. If they're new ones, we should definitely be providing much more input into the spec, I think.
Right, so we have a proposal on the table then. So, do you want to go through, read out the proposal again that we asked for a year and we need more information?
So to seek further clarification from East Sussex County Council relating to quality of bus shelter and opportunities for advertising and environmental considerations. How about that? There you go. Did you get that? Really good.
Right, can we...
So that one, okay.
Proposer?
So Councillor Bristow's proposed that.
Councillor Bristow's proposed, Councillor Matthews is seconding, and then all in favour. Thank you.
That's the other really
Right,
check.
I'm
Now
actually,
we have to get
because...
extension.
Yes, I know.
Okay, Jane, you're in charge, go.
Because otherwise we won't be able to do it, we'll be in the middle of the next conversation.
Yeah, we need to do it for that.
Right, but we're only doing half an hour.
Yeah, no,
That's it, half an hour. I know there was a joke about midnight, half an hour.
Future, I have to leave at 10 o'clock. My wife's carer leaves at 10. So, my wife's carer leaves at 10 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
So please excuse me, I'll leave this maybe downstairs behind.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So I'm just going to ask for an extension of half an hour only, hopefully less than half an hour only, so that we can continue the meeting. Can I propose that Councillor Raven and seconded please? Councillor Bristow and then all in favour.
Yeah, so I'll change
Thank you very much. We are then on to agenda item number 24, which is to provide an opportunity for full council to review of its members' allowance policy.
As you can see from the report, the F&GP committee were very clear that they wanted full council to consider this matter, which is why it's now come before you. And similarly, as the report also makes clear, on the one hand, Seaford Town Council, every time it's considered this since 1999 so far, has decided not to pay an allowance. So the precedent is not to do this. However, clearly, as officers, we feel it should be essential that during every council term it is reconsidered. The reason to save a question, the reason for the timings is because when the budget was set for this year, no allowances were included. And also the other timing is that we know more work is needed on the detailed proposal you need. So this motion is asking you whether you want us to work up a full allowances proposal or not, and then you would then consider that then, but to take effect in 2025 for budgetary reasons. I hope it's taken on that chair.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Honeyman.
As you know, Chair, thank you, Madam Mayor. There's two independent reports, they are independent, I stress that, about the enumeration panel for both the LDC and the town parish councils. Okay, the work must have started last summer, 23, as the panel met for both schemes, and it was published in November 23. So the town council here had the report in November 23. Therefore, it could have been budgeted into the, whether we approve the budget for January 2024. So was it budgeted? So it should have been anyway. Even if we weren't necessarily going to take it, you still budgeted it anyway as a projection. So that's one question. The Seaford Town Council, as far as I know, have no input into the town parish council vision. There's a question there, as mentioned in the independent remunerator panel, all 23 parishes were contacted. Some replied, but as far as I know, we had no input in the reply for Seaford Town Council. In case of that, I think that's not good either. I wasn't happy with that when I found out we didn't even reply sometime in the summer, early autumn. The appendix, the appendix 1 of the independent enumeration report was missing from the Finance and General Purpose Committee and also here. So we don't even know what the other council said. So why was that missing? I haven't seen the appendix 1. That's another question, that's missing. So we haven't got the information. I don't know if it's incompetent somewhere on the lines. I know I'm in a public meeting here, but a lot of information here not really put to us in full. So I cannot see why we had no input sometime in summer 23, which I've mentioned, and it could have been brought earlier to another committee way before this particular time here in almost April 2024, where it could have been dealt with in the summer of last year or into the autumn. So obviously something was missing here as a council. Because you know, the views of the policies, if something becomes insignificant, you are able to update them earlier than the proposed time. So what you're trying to do now is update it now, and it could easily be done in the autumn. So there's another discrepancy I'd like to be clear tonight. And I think I mentioned about the general reserves. You can use the general reserves if we agree as a council for something as relatively small anyway. We're looking at what, 10, 15,000 depending on who decides to take this up. Yes, I mean, the amount is relatively small, but I will say the recommendations from the independent report. Otherwise, you could argue that the town council is quite inward-looking and not very diverse. So this goes some way into, I'm almost there, one of the last bit, some way in recompensing, for example, we have no allowance for any computers or tablets here, for example. So that sort of money would help going to replace that sort of budget. You know, £500 would be quite useful to when laptops need to be updated. But at the moment we have, again, like some councils, we don't have that sort of money.
Councillor Honeyman, I have literally half an hour to do this meeting.
So basically, I think we need more information, but I'm quite unhappy how this came to this particular council. Thank you very much.
I can answer now. I'll take all points together.
Do you want to take all points together? Councillor Preston.
Thank you. I mean, I'm not on finance, so I saw this come through and contributed to it. I'm pleased it's come through, because I think it's really important, not just for some of the reasons that have already come in to consider it, but, you know, baselines are changing, everyone's in a cost of living crisis and so on. We want to sort of encourage diversity and so on. I would like to propose that we adopt the stance which is summed up by 1.5b, which is asking officers to research further and present the information to a future full council meeting for consideration, including budgetary considerations. And I think it merits further work and further considerations. I'd like to propose that.
Thank you. Councillor.
I was going to make largely similar points to Councillor Bristow, so I will second that and just note that I'd like to see more people from different backgrounds encouraged into politics.
Thank you. Councillor Matthews.
Just to concur with Councillor Bristow and Councillor Horrow, actually, just we need to ensure that, my point of view, that we can encourage everyone to consider becoming a councillor in future, and I think we need to explore this further, and certainly I'm considering budget should be taken into account.
Right, Councillor Honeyman, it has been really
brief. Very quickly, I'd like to propose that we amend the recommendations for 25-26, 24-25 as per the independent report. This so you can backdate it. So it said from May 24 for town parish councils. So I wouldn't recommend going from the whole year for the staff to basically do the work. A lot of this work should be done before anyway. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And a very quick question for myself is, as who would be presumably like Lewis District, they pay our tax, national insurance, so our town council would pay all that.
It would be done through the payroll and tax, and national insurance would apply.
Yeah.
Obviously, we would give councils the detail of that, which is what 1.5b is about.
That's
is the
fine.
fact that there are certain matters of detail that need investigation, which is actually quite significant work, and but for your sakes, to make sure you're absolutely clear about the decision that you would be taking, simply for your sakes that would be done, because clearly councils need to be very mindful of those sorts of things. And you know, I know some councils, for example, don't feel able to take their loans because of tax reasons and stuff like that. So it is a complex old business, but not straightforward. What I would say is that it was very clear that up until this year, the customer practice for 25 years has been not to pay the allowance. So that is why we did, frankly, drop everything about this when it first got mooted, because we had 25 years customer practice from this council of not paying this allowance. But we were really, and therefore in terms of the budget back in January, no council has proposed this in January when the budget was being done, and so that's why it wasn't included as part of the budget considerations then. Moving forward, that's what the purposes report is, to understand the mood of the meeting in terms of wishing necessary work to be done to consider adopting allowances That's heard loud and clear, and that's why the report is framed in that way. So if the motion is passed, it will be on the basis of 1.5b. And to say finally, 1.6 is very carefully worded. It says it is anticipated that any changes. That does not say any changes. In other words, the word anticipated is a nicely ambivalent word. In other words, it is free for councillors to decide if they wish, when they determine this matter, absolutely, if they wish to update the arrangement. They'll be free to do this, but we wouldn't make an assumption of doing that, which is why we've used the formal words we have in item 1.6.
Thank you, Chair. Right, Councillor Honeyman, I'm sorry.
Can I have a specific motion to say it's from April 24, please? No, that's
Well,
not.
I don't know if it just
No,
says-
you're allowed to backdate it, it did say the independent report, I've read the independent report.
Yes, absolutely. So, Councillor, what we're saying is including any budgetary considerations covers that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, budgetary considerations include saying we want to spend money in this year from general reserve. You can do, that's what budgetary considerations means.
Right, so somebody I'm sure somebody mentioned amendment, a motion, or did I miss that? No, okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
sorry,
was
do you-
Councillor Bristow.
1.5b was proposed.
Yeah.
So the motion is to consider town council arts members' allowances and adopt 1.5b in the report.
Yeah. Okay, can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Sturton and seconded Councillor Bristow, and then all in favour. Thank you.